Welcome to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Crossing the timeline with plenty of time. 20 seconds remain in the quarter. 15 on the shot clock. About 4 seconds between the two. Jimmy gets to the rack. I mean, he springs up and throws it down.
Under by 15 with 2:39 to play. Airtight defense, 38% shooting allowed for the opponent. Jay pulls up top, left side angle three-pointer drops. Finishing touches tonight, baby.
Comes into Wagner at 7, at 6. Wagner pulls up over to Shepard. Shepard penetrates. Floater. Yes! Way to go, Reed Shepard. Why not? Why not Reed Shepard? Reed Shepard rescues the Cats.
Here's Jamal Shed, 14:27 to go. Shed left corner, Cryer catch and shoot three. Got it. LJ Cryer's got 20.
Wow.
Ninth time this season, Cryer with 20 or more.
BYU can bounce this one out. The Cougars come to the home of college basketball and emerge from the fog victorious. The Cougs have won it. 76-68. BYU is a winner.
You could feel this coming today at shoot-around. I mean, we had a terrible shoot-around, and, you know, the focus wasn't very good. The energy level wasn't as good, and you could feel this coming.
Is that what we would call a letdown game, DB?
You got jokey jokes.
Here on,
there was a letdown game.
We will definitely get to that. That was our guys over at Wake Forest.
Yeah, there's definitely a letdown game.
It's Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are also live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla.
You are looking live.
We are live. We're live and alive, both positives here this morning on a Wednesday. We have a good show lined up for you at 8 o'clock. Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. At 8:30, we've got Andy Kendi from KETV. And at 9, we've got our very own Jacob Padilla of Hurrdat Sports. But before all that,
hey, is Jacob? Should we pick a fight? What do we got with Jacob?
What are we fighting with Jacob about today?
Nothing. I'm Team Jacob. I'm 99.876% of the time. I'm Team Padilla.
Yeah. Him and I disagree a lot, but we get along pretty well.
So that seems to be kind of your sphere of influence.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm in that circle. I feel like Matt DeMarinis is in that circle. I feel like Jacob Padilla is in that circle.
Yep.
So are you a one-off or are you just...
I am usually the dissenting vote.
Yeah.
No matter what the discussion is. And not to say we disagree all the time, but if someone in the group is going to disagree, it's usually me.
You're the brown sheep.
Pretty much, yeah. I mean, and then you've got Alex Sindelar hanging around that he's the.
So let me ask you this about Alex.
Yeah,
especially because
terrific guy.
Creighton baseball, at least offensively, is off to a good start.
Yes. Terrific human being.
Is he defiant?
Not really,
because he seems pretty easygoing.
He's super easygoing. He's just totally out there. So you're not going to get serious analysis from
that's kind of what
Alex
I was
very often.
He says some crazy
He's
things,
capable of it. Like he sees
I can't imagine him like taking his foot and like drawing a line in the sand.
No, not really.
Yeah.
He usually makes a joke about, especially if things get contentious, he kind of tries to diffuse with a joke or something like that. And, not that any of us are in danger of stop being friends or anything, but it gets heated in there sometimes.
Yeah.
Listen, I've got one of my first introductions to this group of people when I was covering Creighton like 10 years ago.
Nice shirt, by the way.
Go Jays, baby.
So
let's go.
I'm not sure I've seen that. Do you have the hood tucked in?
There's no hood. It is
so you have a pocket front with no
on
hood.
A crew neck, yeah.
That is legit.
Yeah, I kind of like it.
No, I'm with you on that.
Yeah, I'm a fan.
So obviously we have a lot of gear.
That's the best part about coaching for me was the
these
gear.
Pockets are too high.
Yeah, I saw that. What's happening? Like, I don't know what are we doing there? You got to have them down here.
I mean, maybe it's a bad cut.
Maybe,
but I don't complain about. I feel like I'm at Nebraska again with just wearing free gear.
Yeah,
so it's okay.
That's a good way to go.
Yeah, I don't know what I would do. Like some of these kids that go to college and they can't bring their high school clothes.
Yeah,
I remember. So. Caitlin Hanna, she's really good. She was a really, really good golfer at Westside. Her little brother is gonna help our special teams out this year at Westside. And and she has a ton of West Side gear, but
Mhm.
she's playing golf at Iowa. And she's like, yeah. I said, what are you going to do with all your West Side gear? We can't take any clothes. I'm like, dang, you got to start over?
Yeah.
Like, no. So I don't know. Like, is it like that I got to ask the guys down the
In
street.
Lincoln?
Yeah, can we?
You wear your West Side gear?
Yeah, so when I was with Coach Rule the other day,
Mhm.
I must have had on something West Side, but it said West Side football.
Yeah.
And I don't know if it was Viv or Leona, but she saw one of the guys at the game Sunday that had on West Side gear.
Yeah.
And she's like, ugh, Wisconsin. I was like, wait, Coach, are you not
Hold
teaching
on.
her?
Hold on.
The point, man.
You got to be careful with that W.
The point.
I get on, if the layman, you're just like looking at it real quick.
I wonder if it was Viv or Leona.
There's a similarity.
Yeah.
There's a resemblance. No,
yes, there is.
When I switched,
So you ever been to Pierce? You seen a Pierce Norfolk battle?
I have.
Yeah, there's some similarities.
There are, for sure.
All right, so back up off me.
I'm not saying it's your fault.
I mean, they're the Bluejays too. Okay. Okay. Which, by the way, here's a fantastic environment to go watch a football game.
You're a little defensive about the W.
No,
over
absolutely
there.
not. See, there's a fine line between being defensive and stating facts. The kids call it keeping it 100.
Oh, okay. That's what the kids call it these days.
Man, I don't know.
Speaking of terrific environments,
I don't know. To play.
Speaking of terrific environments,
That's one of them.
That's a great environment. Obviously, Creighton last week was a great environment.
Yeah, man.
And
apparently
not everyone was a fan.
Do we still say lit? I think lit's played out.
Yeah, I probably say it because I don't hang out with Gen Zers and the youths very often.
Tough hang.
A lot of them are tough hang. But we
need some t-shirts. I was with Joshua the other day, Bat from Triple B.
Yeah.
Our kids played against one another, and even his delivery is funny, let alone his t-shirts.
Yeah. We need to get some show merch. We're
going with Tough Hang.
Yeah.
Tough Hang.
I think Tough Hang's a good one.
You got a couple of our buddies locally in the area saying Tough Hang.
It's a little mini sensation going around the Omaha metro area.
I don't know about that.
I also want to get I want to do
I'm mesmerized by the shirt.
I think we need to do a bow nose overrated.
Oh, that's tough.
Get one of those shirts going.
I thought we had dodged the proverbial bullet,
if
you will.
That's me choosing violence. I think we could do that. I think
who's the maker of that T-shirt? Do you know?
I got it from Lawlers. I don't know.
Yeah, they're an apparel sponsor.
I don't know. I don't know the brand.
I drive past them quite a bit.
Yeah,
because that is kind of my corridor.
Over on 84th there.
Oh yeah, I'm a Just Good Meats guy.
Oh yeah.
Sometimes when I get creative and I don't want to take 108th or 96 to Center Street.
Yeah,
I'll just take L straight down to 84th.
Bop down to 84th.
Yeah.
Just Good Meats is where my wife got she got me a tomahawk for my birthday. And so she went over to Just Good Meats. And
I think I have a couple of more spares I could give you.
Yeah.
They have now they have ends engraved in the bone.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I think I have a couple more.
Okay. I mean, listen, I'm not going to complain about that.
Yeah. You're a tomahawk guy?
Oh yeah. Come on.
Who's
not a tomahawk guy?
There's weird people out there.
You cook them right, they're all good.
Man, I've been experimenting. So my coach, my ace, ROC, is we exchange a lot of protein carnivore ideas.
Mm-hmm.
My man is like microwaving and baking little slices of cheese, making his own Cheez-Its.
I saw that on TikTok the other day.
Bro, he brought some last night to the game.
Good.
Hey, don't tell anybody, but I wanted the crumbs. Hey, no, seriously, listen, don't tell. So I wanted the crumbs, and I put the Ziploc bag to my mouth.
No.
I know.
In public?
Yeah. So I was like, oh gosh, are these that good where I'm willing to jeopardize every germaphobe thing in my body?
So you're like, you got the bag and you're doing one of these?
Yes. It was like sensational. And I did. So here's the deal.
Yep.
I wasn't going to try them then.
Yeah.
But he was kind. He wasn't like animate, like gun to head. But he's like, hey, you gotta try this.
Yeah.
And I put him in my pocket.
He was a little pushy about it.
Well, there was only like 8, and I'm not knocking that he didn't like bring me a box full.
Yeah,
He was
sure.
nice enough to, but he was already eating. Like he had all this ground beef and stuff on the plate. And
He's doing this at a basketball game?
oh yeah, I'm telling you, this dude is chill. Like operation, he does whatever, and doesn't, he revs pretty low.
Yeah.
So he's like, you gotta try those, and I'm like, man, there's only like 7 or 8 in here. They're like they're the knockoff version of like Cheese Whisps.
Mhm.
Have you ever seen those?
Oh, yeah.
So I knew if I had one, I'm eating them all. But I felt compelled because he's kind of watching me.
Yeah.
Man, listen, I'm doing those today.
I thought, whoa.
What kind of cheese? You like cheddar?
So he used, and I buy this kind. I buy the exact. I said, hey, send me a pic of the cheese that you use. I buy the exact kind. It's Asiago Romano. It's little triangles.
Yep.
But I have probably 4 different kinds of cheese in my fridge right now.
Yeah.
And so I'll do any of them. And I put my mouth to the Ziploc bag.
I'm gonna be honest. That's a choice.
I lived. I'm up this morning, so I think I'm okay. But yeah, I didn't understand. Yeah, the environment thing. Like we had a good one last night.
Yeah, because you were out at West Side at the district.
Yeah, it was so. Shout out to Red Shield.
Mm-hmm.
Like those guys and gals get it in, and the place was packed. Even Brian's section was, because they got off to a good start.
Yeah,
I was like, shoot.
You had some VIPs in the house last night too, didn't you?
Yeah, Coach Linzer and Coach Hoiberg. And Nate he texted early, but it's not out of the ordinary for him to say like best wishes or good luck or something. So I didn't think anything of it because they play.
Yeah, they're tomorrow, right?
Yeah, there's a lot going on in Lincoln with their basketball situation. So I'm texting back and forth, and I didn't think anything of it.
Mm-hmm.
And our principal was like, Coach Rule can sit with you, but you're not going to invite Coach Hoiberg? And I gave him question mark.
Yeah.
He's like, hey, he's over there by himself in front of the band. So then I saw the both of them. So I made my way over there I think at halftime, but because I think those guys just want to mind their own business. Right?
Yeah.
They don't want to do the whole,
meet and greet, like
so because they're working, but the environment was unbelievable.
Okay.
Brian traveled strong, and I was still a little. I go through the back way to get into the school, and I came early because, of course, Caleb didn't want to drive, and Brian's coaching staff was in the back by the blue gym. Have I taken you back there? The back exit in the school?
I know where it is because I walk back that way for football.
Yeah.
I go through the kind of between the baseball field
just
and the
4
school.
or 5 coaches are back there,
Yeah.
and I'm a big gully guy, and I was giving him a hug, and I was like, hey man, shout out to wrestling and give those guys my best because I like that staff.
Mm-hmm.
And I was talking about Brian wrestling the other day, obviously, and so I like those guys.
Mm-hmm.
Amir Martin was an old TNE ETG guy, and of course I'm close with Amari, and his dad's a Northwest guy, and so I think it's okay to like
fraternize.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Now, and I've said this before, like I don't always think my players always love it.
Mm-hmm.
I don't always think Coach Samanji always loves it, so I have to kind of be careful.
Sure.
But we had a couple of young kids.
Well, it's a little different during basketball season too, right?
Yeah, it's not. Yeah, it's not. Yeah,
because you're not playing.
I agree. That's my excuse.
Yeah.
Thank you for saying that.
Yeah.
And I had a couple guys over visiting the school on the other day, and I had another coach from another school that was working with some of our seniors. They have open mods, so they're out throwing. Right? They don't have class, and one of the guys is at another school. A school that you'd be particularly interested in. And he's working with one of our former guys. And so I took him out there and I said, hey, he's a good guy over here. I want you to meet him. I always talk about, because I coach this guy in youth. I always talk about surrounding yourself with people that care about kids. So this guy cares about kids, And I'm sure people that are like at West Side are like, you're going to coach against this guy. You're saying good things about him. I'm like, I don't care. Like,
yeah,
life's too short. And plus, what if their paths cross again? You think I don't want the little guy knowing that there's some people out there he can trust?
Well, also, we're not going to war here.
No, but although sometimes I so that's where I struggle.
Yeah.
Because when we play,
sure,
like something different happens to me,
which is fine.
Which is why I'm not anti. Like student behavior, right? Like there's a line you can draw.
Sure.
Like we had one of our football guys that was not on his best behavior last night, and it got a little dicey afterwards. And I'm just like, I'm not gonna say his name. I'm like, hey man, like,
what are we doing here?
But I let it go then. It escalated a little bit at home. Like, well, you think that's representative? I'm like, no, it's not representing Westside. That's just fans being fans. No harm, no foul. Everybody, we're okay, because that same environment that I'm talking about is the one we needed to get us over the hump when Westside's on our throat or Brian's on our throat.
Yeah.
7 minutes into the game. You know what I mean? Like we needed that energy.
And you don't get to have both. Like you don't get both sides of the coin. That's where, an email came out from Creighton yesterday.
Yeah.
To their student section.
I love the verbiage.
Regarding, it was a little aggressive.
Even I would like.
It was a little aggressive. And you don't like swearing, right?
But I understand. Like I'm not going to tell you how to fan.
Yeah.
If nobody's hurt.
Well, and that's the thing, right? So if you weren't at the game last night, or at the game last week against UConn, I counted because I thought it was terrific. I loved it.
Well,
because I hate
kind of more your nature.
It is my nature. I hate Dan Hurley a lot. Just to be clear, in case anybody was ambiguous about how I feel about one Daniel Hurley up at the University of Connecticut, not a fan. So when on five different occasions they tell him what he can go do with himself, I am very amused and I love it. First of all, I love the passion. I love the energy. I love the sentiment that Dan Hurley can go F off. I love all those things.
And the Blue Crew can be pretty raucous.
Yes, they can. And to be clear, Creighton needed that against UConn because on one hand, we have everybody complaining, all the students don't show up. When they do show up, they're not loud enough. And everybody else in the stadium is kind of taking their cues from the student section. They need to lead the whole thing and this and that and whatever. And guess what? They did exactly that on Tuesday. That's the one hand. On the other hand, you've got hey guys, that's not representative of who we are. It's like, you're a bunch of 22-year-old kids. It's pretty representative of who we are, right? Like we're an entire city that kind of hates Dan Hurley. Like it's pretty representative of who we are.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Like I get that as Catholics, we maybe don't love the F word. Okay. But it's fairly representative of what we are. It's not like they were throwing things like last night, Texas Tech fans are throwing stuff.
Right.
Right. Like that's a problem. Okay. In no way were Creighton fans disrupting the game. Mm-hmm. I understand, like, we got little ears and whatever. You know how many times I remember hearing stuff that I shouldn't have when I was a kid? Zero. I don't remember any of it. And I went to games. I'm sure I heard things I shouldn't have. I'm sure people were doing stuff that I don't remember any of it because kids don't process things that way because they don't know what it means. Mm-hmm. If you don't know what something means, you don't remember it. Like plain and simple, unless it's super traumatic, which guess what? Hearing somebody tell Dan Hurley to go F himself, not super traumatic. Maybe for Dan Hurley, but not for the kids in the crowd, right? And if you were watching on TV, A, you probably couldn't really hear it. That's what I was told at least, and that's what I heard when I was rewatching. And B, if you didn't know I had people in the building asking me what they were saying.
Mm-hmm.
So you're really like, what are we concerned about here? What's the problem?
No, I understand.
Because listen, you complain about the wine and cheese crowd, but when they go the other direction, you send out an email being like, this is what words did they use? They use some pretty SAT words. Lewd.
Like it's
there were some multi-syllabic words in there to describe the swearing.
This is a little extra.
Like if you just want to be like, hey, let's not chant the F word on television. Okay, cool. Like if that's the email,
I don't know. Like
Nobody
and
can
I'm
do that.
I'm consistent with this. Like very few people that aren't in the Hepburn family are closely related or Bellevue West grads love Chucky more than I do.
Sure.
Takes good care of my family. We whatever, right? Like
sorry.
Right. So but I don't have any problems with Nebraska fans booing him.
Yeah.
Like that's not my so there's lots of things I get out of bed in the morning I try to accomplish. Regulating energy in a building in a competitive arena isn't one of them.
The only time I'm concerned about that is when there's not enough energy in the building.
Like that, so that's not on my radar. And sometimes like people embrace that. Like that's part of competing. Like if somebody's gonna hum a snowball at me minutes before opening kickoff at Boulder, and it lodges between my helmet and shoulder pads, does it hurt? Yeah. Am I mad? Yeah. Do I think it's over the top? Yeah.
Yeah.
But I'm not in my head, even as a 21-year-old who's pretty pissed at the time, I'm not going to be like, you're such bad people. Like, because I got the fact.
You get it.
Even though I felt like that was a little excessive.
Yeah, I think throwing stuff is we're crossing the line.
I thought that was excessive.
But there's not a lot of words you can say that are going to make me be like, "Whoa, guys."
That's my point.
Whoa.
And this is a guy that doesn't like.
You don't swear.
No,
I'm not.
Can't use the like.
I'm not I'm not a sticks and stones guy. Like, words don't hurt me. But in a fan environment, if you are not,
whoever said that was lying.
Yeah, pretty dumb.
Words
they hurt a lot.
Words are powerful.
They hurt a lot. But in a fan environment, as long as we're not hurting anyone else physically, and we're not harassing like other fans, I really don't have a problem with it. TK said, that's why I was laughing. TK said on the YouTube stream, as a Catholic, the F word is exactly who we are.
So, okay, I'm glad he said
that's
that.
from TK.
Because sometimes I say things about people that look like me that other people can't say.
Yeah.
It's like, oh. So when you said that, I was like, wait a minute. Are you sure?
I know a lot of Catholics that swear a lot.
And
they swear a lot.
I think that's exactly what I hear.
I've heard priests use that word. Okay. Like, I'm not kidding.
Yeah.
So I think it's a little aggressive to be like this lewd and loquacious and,
wait, what?
Whatever the words they used in the email. It's like, come on, guys. It's a word. Maybe we chill.
Yeah, I get it, right? I mean, shoot, I'm married to an administrator, right? Who does crowd control, right? She had to open up early for the officials the other day districts, and so I get the wanting to kind of corral student behavior, but you have to be really we have a couple of folks that I think are extremely conservative when it comes to fandom.
Okay.
Like our athletic director, he's like, we joke, he's like king rule follower, right?
Yeah.
So, but I'm like, TK, like we need the juice, right? Like let them toe the line without going over. And here's the thing that I'll say, and I'm not saying, what's good for the goose is good for the gander, but it's not like Hurley's not giving it to you guys.
Oh yeah. Hurley said he was going to fight somebody on the way out. I've literally heard Hurley last year, heard him tell a fan to go F themselves.
Yeah,
like word for word.
No, so I kind of get that.
So this is a goes around, comes around situation here for Mr. Hurley.
I don't regulate it.
Coming up next, we've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Dear students, last Tuesday, the positive engagement and passion that made the Creighton community proud during our men's basketball contest against the University of Connecticut was exuberant. However, that excitement was sullied by negative interactions with the visiting student athletes, coaches, and game officials. We were disappointed to witness this unacceptable, unsportsmanlike behavior from our student section, including flagrant profane language, lewd gestures, and comments that were directed towards our guests.
You're a child.
These actions do not reflect who we are as a university and will not be tolerated. Blue Jay fans are the best in the country, but this means our home court should be a challenging place to play, not a hostile place to visit. Moving forward, let us still be loud, enthusiastic, and fervent in our support of student athletes and Creighton University, while also continuing to represent the highest ideals of our great university and remain guided by a sense of respect for others before, during, and after each game. That's the letter that was sent out to the Creighton student section by the provost of students. I don't know.
You're just going into full-fledged character, huh?
Well, I thought it was appropriate for the tone of the email.
Yeah.
You're right. It does sound like it was composed by AI.
I said that off air. Like,
yeah.
And I don't know how AI works. I promise you I don't. But I just remember I told you the quick anecdote about when Nebraska staff came and we were talking about AI and Coach Rowe pretended to cancel a meeting. And then he said, make it sound
professional or whatever.
Yeah, I can't remember
polished
what the word.
something.
Polished or something like that.
Yeah.
And then he reread the version of what it generated. And I was like, why doesn't everybody do that?
Well, because sometimes it's good, and sometimes it sounds like this.
Yeah.
Sometimes it sounds like you looked up a thesaurus for every single word.
So my buddy, I made him some. I smoked a picana. It's a whatever cut of meat, and
it's like a Brazilian beef type thing, isn't it?
Right.
Yeah.
And I actually used Brazilian seasoning in a rub. But anyway, so he's at Micah's middle school, so I could kill two birds with one stone. Like I had to bring Micah lunch money, and which, by the way, we got to figure that out. Like
how to get your kids some lunch money.
I don't know how to use my school bucks, but that's a Damon problem, like most things.
I don't even know what that is.
Yeah, well, again,
when I was in school, we had punch cards, so
the little things just like
I literally had to go in to the cafeteria before school and hand the lunch lady a check.
Yeah.
So like, here you go, Ravi.
So anyway, he's what I'd call a foodie. There's probably 4 or 5 guys in our staff that I think are like real foodies.
Okay.
His response to me was unbelievable. It was really long, like initial thoughts, then flavor profile, and I'm like.
So he went to AI and goes, "This tastes good. Make it sound good."
I told him, I was like, "Wow, wasn't expecting all that. You could have just been like, it's good or it's bad." And he said he didn't want to hear my mouth, so I was like, "Touche." But I was like, "Is that how AI works? It's kind of dangerous."
AI can work in a lot of different ways depending on how you use it.
Yeah,
we can go into an AI tutorial later.
My guy Lance, not Michigan Lance, but my man Balk Dog. Like when AI he kind of stays current on like those issues. So this is probably a year, maybe some change ago. He's like, "Hey, what do you think about this? If this comes to fruition?" And I was like, "I don't know, man. It's kind of scary." And now that it's here, I'm like, "I don't know, man. It's kind of scary." I mean, I did see iRobot with Will Smith. I'm still traumatized.
Listen, we were talking about self-awareness yesterday. When the AI becomes self-aware, that's when we have a problem.
Yeah, it's crazy, man. But we needed the environment last night. I've seen places, Colorado in 94.
Sometimes
we needed that environment. I still, the thing that I remember the most about the Orange Bowl against Miami.
What's that?
When we came out of the tunnel.
Yeah.
Ask Dumas the way that he felt, and I mean he was the one that got the crowd hype, and I was always usually some place close to him, but when we came out into the Orange Bowl and we heard the response, from Nebraska fans, it did not feel like a road game anymore. Yeah. Like immediately, ask anybody.
Just switched.
So I know. So that's why I'm very leery.
As opposed to when you were driving to the to the Orange Bowl, where it very much felt like a road game.
Yeah. So I told you about my first Big Ten my first Big Ten gig was, I think, 2012 or 2013, 2012 maybe, and it was Northern Iowa. I was my corner where I was getting good reception and Wi-Fi was kind of in front of Iowa student section. I'm like, oh my goodness, like this isn't even a conference game, and it is.
They're getting after it.
Yeah. So like I'm very aware of what that means. We're down 20-3 to Bellevue West, right? 2 years ago. Like I know that stuff matters.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Of all, like I said, of all the things that happened against Miami, like entering that stadium and all of a sudden hearing the reception, it no longer was grass field and the place we couldn't play. And even though they were the number 3 team in the country and it was basically a home game, it didn't feel like that.
Yeah.
Right. I'm also the guy, and anybody that's listened to me since however long I've been doing this, 05, 06, or 04, whatever, I'm not I have a hard time with cheer as the winners go by, stand and clap, the Nebraska nice thing.
Yeah.
As a player, if I'm 100% transparency, it drove me crazy.
Yeah, you want to be a little nasty.
I like a little hostile. Now, you don't have to be a derelict, but
yeah. Like, I'm not asking.
We don't have to clap, right?
No.
Because as I started covering this deal, and you do like pregame stuff for coaches, and this almost to a coach, this is what they would say when coming into Lincoln. And I have to warn our players, don't be fooled by how well they treat you, this, that, and the other. This is a tough place to play. But then when you start losing at home, then I'm really over the top. I'm like, stop doing that. We need to, you know what I mean? So it changed.
Yeah.
It changed my sentiment. And this is just full transparency. I don't know the right answer.
Sure.
I'm just telling you how it makes me feel.
Here's my right answer. Don't throw stuff. Don't use slurs. That's it.
Don't throw stuff. Don't use. Okay.
I think that's a fair line, right?
Yeah.
Like, hey, you want to tell Dan Hurley to go F himself? Absolutely. Not a problem. You want to tell Shaka Smart how big of a jerk he is? Why not?
You guys love some Shaka Smart.
I do not love some Shaka Smart.
What did Shaka Smart do to you guys?
He acted like a real jackwagon last year in Omaha. That's it.
Again, a word that people that look like me wouldn't use.
I'm trying really hard not to swear on the air this morning.
You can say anything once.
I'm trying not to make Shane's job any harder. I know he doesn't always listen to the show, so I'm not sure he's on the dump button the way he needs to be.
I wonder what he felt about last night's environment, because it was a great environment, as we just heard from Coach Hoiberg.
Yeah, I don't know.
Now, I mean, I think Bynum and Martin only combined for 11 points between the two, Amir, but the environment and Bynum's a guy. I don't think this is a hot take.
Okay.
I'm going to say this.
I'm curious where you're going here.
I don't think this is a hot take.
Okay.
But at the same age with a similar frame, Amari Bynum is as a junior, because Bynum is 2025. He's ahead of, and I was in the building for 9 years, so
Justin Patton
is ahead of Justin Patton.
He's not quite as tall as Justin, right?
No, but remember, Patton grew like 8 inches.
He did.
In a year.
Right, from what, sophomore to junior?
It's more like 9th to 10th.
Okay.
And then a little more from 10th to 11th.
Okay.
But Bynum is every bit of 6'8".
Right. There's a pretty
tremendous length, a good ball handler for his length, and he can shoot it.
I don't think that's a hot take, because Justin Patton in high school,
late bloomer.
He was late bloomer. And listen, I went and saw him in high school, and I was like, I get the projection here. I think it's going to take a couple of years, right? Because you could see, hey, he moves pretty well for a guy that size. Obviously, you got the height, the length, whatever. But because this honest to God truth, I went to go, as where I was coaching at the time, I went to go scout Kendall Patton as a big for us, because he was like 6'6", 6'7". I was like,
dude.
And he had a really good motor in high school.
I like KP.
I was like, maybe. And so I was a Grace at the time, and I was like, it might make sense for him. He could be in Omaha, because I knew he wanted to play ball in college too, and he wasn't going to get the D1 offers.
Close to his brother too.
And I was like, hey, he could just be down the street from Justin. They could stay close and still both play ball and all that, right? So I'm there to scout Kendall. I knew about Justin, obviously, because he had gotten the Creighton offer and everything, and I was covering Creighton sort of exclusively at the time. But I went and I was like, yeah, there's some work to be done. I can see the projection. I get why they offered him. I was like, there's some work to be done.
Yeah, but I think Amari is.
So it doesn't shock me to hear you say that, I guess, is my point.
Like a little more rigor, strength and conditioning.
Yeah.
He's got great stock. His dad, Omar, was.
What's the motor like?
So I'm not going to pretend to know, because I'm not around him.
Fair.
But I do think every night out, he should be a 22-12 guy.
Yeah, that's fair. Coming up next, we'll wrap up hour number 1 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up hour number one here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. And coming up on March 14th, the Omaha Supernovas are going to be live back here at the CHI Health Center, 7 p.m. against the Atlanta Vibe. Make sure you go to supernovas.com to get tickets. You can also get some merch. You can check out news and everything else there as well. Don't forget, tomorrow night, it's not Thursday yet, DB. Tomorrow night.
All my day, listen.
I have no idea what day it is.
Yeah, I'm on the struggle bus.
I blame.
You play on a Tuesday, it's like, what?
I blame leap year. That's
this year, right?
It's tomorrow. Tomorrow's Leap Day.
Oh yeah, so that makes it my buddy Chad, his wife Tam,
she's Leap Day baby.
Yep.
There you go. Tomorrow on Leap Day, the Supernovas are on the road. You can check out how to follow them along on supernovas.com as well. But make sure you get your tickets early for their return home March 14th at CHI Health Center. That's supernovas.com. Wanted to, you mentioned kind of the schedule and everything there. Wanted to, before we get into that, we should talk to Lance.
I'm just trying to figure out how to read this thing. All these little numbers.
I have no idea what those mean.
Do you pay any attention?
No, not at all.
Okay, then I don't feel bad.
I only pay attention to these numbers right here, how long we have till break.
My man.
And then I pay attention to this line here, as we found out yesterday, which sometimes is not accurate.
Well, Shane's on his game now.
He's on his game now, and we got Michigan Lance on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline. Lance, what's going on, man?
Hey, good morning, fellas. Real quick, Ravi, your opinion. Who's the best Nebraska running back, number one, for you?
Best Nebraska running back all time? I probably gotta go.
Took you too long.
I probably gotta go LP.
Yes, what's going on?
I probably gotta go LP.
Okay, LP. Oh, yeah, LP. But not Mike Rozier, who won the Heisman Trophy, had over 3,000 yards. And LP had one good season at Nebraska.
2.
But we're talking about Bo Jackson.
2.
What are you talking about? He played in 3 games his junior year.
What about sophomore? We're talking about his freshman. He's a good freshman year too, right?
Yeah. Lance is on drugs.
Really? What was his freshman? He didn't have 1,000 his freshman year. What did he play? What did he have, like 600 his freshman year, DB?
Hey.
What are we talking about here?
Hey.
But Bo Jackson?
Speed racer. Speed racer.
Hey.
Before I cut you off at the before I cut you off at the knees and embarrass you. What are you trying? Are you trying to make the case that LP didn't have enough body of work to be in the discussion? Yes or no?
Yes. Yes. You know why? But that's not my argument. I'm telling you I have people argue that with me. He doesn't have enough body of work. But that's not what I think. I think he's the best. I don't care. He doesn't have a Heisman. He doesn't have the most career yards or touchdowns. He's nowhere near that stuff. But he's number one because you know what? My eyes told me.
He had more touchdowns in 1 year at Nebraska than Bo Jackson had his entire NFL career. Just going to put that out there.
Anyway, basketball, West Side. West Side basketball. Hey, that was crazy last night. So that was my first time watching Bynum.
Yeah.
And it's crazy, but let me, like how the team game works, like their defense was suffocating the first quarter and a half.
Yeah.
And then but I knew what was going to happen. I said, Westside's going to start making these threes. They might want to, they better have an adjustment. For some reason, I got to read Westside's going to start hitting them. So
full disclosure, full disclosure, Brian hadn't shown a lot of 2-3. That was a nice wrinkle from Coach Gully. Like Westside, I'm telling you, if they're honest, they didn't practice. They didn't game plan or scout the 2-3 zone. I mean, it's in tin cannon, right? Like this was,
oh yeah. No, I'm with you.
So it slowed Westside down quite a bit.
No, most definitely. But then again, I mean, in addition, finally trying to get to state with the good of team. See, have a good day, love you. How I know Westside after watching Westside the last couple of years in basketball, like I just knew, like, all right, man, now they're not making them now, but what are you gonna do when they start making them? Because they're gonna eventually shoot you out of it. And then you guys' defense flipped because your defense wasn't that great early, and then you guys became suffocating. It's like, man, it's just, if you watch sports, and it's kind of like my take with like Bo Jackson, listen, man, if you're watching, you see things different than what you hear, or if somebody puts a piece of paper in front of you,
right,
and says, well, hey, here's the stat sheet, or here's the point spread, or whatever that may be. You know what I mean? And so, and that was just a interesting game. And it also goes to the point of, like, that was my first time watching a full game of Amari Bynum, right? And now, is that game going to tell me, man, he's not the best player in the state? He's not that great. I look at basketball different now because I know how they judge people on basketball. It's more than ever potential, right? So he's long. He can handle the ball. You know what I mean? He can shoot
it too.
the ball. You know what I mean? And so he can shoot the ball, even though it wasn't hitting last night. You can tell by his form he has a good shot.
But did you
right?
see how? But did you see how he was defended? Right. So,
Oh, most definitely.
I mean, Caleb, they weren't really going to switch off him. They were going to play through ball screens. They're going to try to touch him and push him.
Right. Let me answer that for you. When you got football players playing against basketball players, like a good football basketball guy is going to be tougher than a straight up and down basketball guy.
So his strength training will really help because his legs are so thin. So they basically just pushed him, they got him off his spots.
He's a basketball player. That's what if you got a tough football basketball guy, that's what's gonna happen.
But you agree with me though, as a junior, and you know me, I'm team. Gosh, I got all sorts of pictures in my gallery on my phone. I was a Justin Patton defender. He's ahead of Patton at the same age.
Oh, most definitely. Most definitely. What? Justin Patton didn't get good until his senior year. What are we talking about?
That's a little harsh, but okay.
No, it's not. That's the facts. Nobody likes
no, because I think people wanted him to die. It's not because I saw him every day, but I think the way that they you have to look at the surrounding pieces, the way they played. People wanted him to be more dominant with his frame, but how they played and what his skill set was, he wasn't going to be a 20-12 guy like people wanted him to. He was still a really good player as a junior. Get out of here with that. He didn't get good until he was a senior. I mean, he was playing with some guys, especially early on, like Tyrell Carroll and those guys, who, by the way, could get paid to play basketball today, like before he left for Millard South. A lot went into that. Don't poo-poo his evolution. And it's not because he was a North guy, but he was good as a junior too. People just wanted a 7-footer to be better. You don't get out of bed. Listen what I'm telling you. You don't get out of bed and grow 6 inches, and all of a sudden you're coordinated and it looks nice and smooth out there on the court. I mean, come on, man.
Okay, so it's okay. So that's still okay.
No,
for me
you
to say.
said it emphatically like word is bond. No, he was good as a junior. He wasn't what people wanted him to be. That's what you should say.
Listen, no, what I'm gonna say is he wasn't. When I say he wasn't good as a junior, okay, all right. Was he trash? No, but was he also good? No, he was an okay player. He was not on anybody's college radar. And I'm not just talking about D1. Okay? He wasn't a college basketball player as a junior. He was a good player as a senior. Again, and he got recruited off potential on what he was going to be, in which he became, because that's how basketball is. All right, he wasn't dominant as a senior either. He was a good player as a senior. So that's what I'm saying. That's what it was. Like he's not an all-time great high school basketball player.
But who is?
Andy Woolridge, Deverell Biggs, Hunter Salas.
You said the same. You stop. You said the same thing about Hunt as a
Alvin
junior.
Mitchell.
You didn't.
About who?
You said the same thing about Hunt as a junior.
Said this. I didn't say no. I said he was good. I said he wasn't great as he wasn't great. Like when I go and watch you and everybody's like, hey,
but now Hunter was great. No, I
didn't say that.
Okay. Okay. But you did use him as an example. You forget we hang out, so I know all the conversations. Like you say Hunter Salas was great.
I can tell you the conversation. When I watched Hunter and I watched Hepburn, right? I went to watch them both. Both of them had D1 offers. One of them played like a D1 player, the other one didn't. I told you that at that time.
100%.
Okay.
Okay.
Checky Hepburn was the guy. When they told me, hey, he's a Big Ten offer. He's a sophomore.
He's still the guy. Hunt's just evolving. Yeah.
High school. I'm not talking about college. I'm only talking about high school. College is a whole different thing. Let's just stay in, because people want to revisit history and say, well, Hunter was always the top guy ever. In high school, Hunter was not better than Andy Woolridge. He wasn't even better than Deverell Biggs. That's all I'm talking about is high school. See, people want to go past after people put up 29 against Duke. Oh, he was always, no. He wasn't always tough. He wasn't always a dominant player. Now, Chucky Hepburn, though, that was a dog in high school for all 3 years. Hunter became a dog his senior year.
Yeah. Okay. But you do know that Justin started to collect offers going into his junior year, though, not his senior year. It was the summer of his sophomore year.
Who are you talking about? Justin Patton?
Yeah, I just want clarity. Like,
You're right. Yeah, okay, but he didn't have D1. Like, he probably had a D2.
Yeah.
He wasn't a D1 guy his whole junior year. That was after the end of that was AAU.
Okay.
I'm just saying, if you want to replace the name Justin Patton with Bo Jackson and Michigan Lance's argument, it's the exact thing I've been saying. Thanks for the call, Lance, on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline.
Wow.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Here is Husker 24/7 senior writer, Brian Christopherson.
Yeah, it'll be a little bit of a circus act.
Brian Christopherson.
Oh, I mean, that's pretty interesting.
Brian Christopherson.
I kind of enjoy that.
Here is Brian Christopherson.
Kicking off hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube, where the commenters really enjoyed DB's cross-examination of Michigan Lance there.
I don't know, man. I don't like to be combative until I have to. I'm one of two ways.
Yeah.
I'm either going to concede and tell you I was wrong, or I'm going to try to bury you. There's really no middle ground. Right? Because I'll know, like, I'm not going to argue if I'm wrong. I'm like, hey, man, good point. Because I'll try to hear, but, man.
Sometimes there's I've
hung up on family before, but I just didn't have the stones to cut him off.
Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, how are you this morning?
Doing pretty good. How are you guys?
BC, we're good.
We're having fun.
We're so if there's like however long we've been back together, 3 weeks or 2 weeks or 2.5 weeks, it has been very spirited radio. Like that's
good.
I would a couple of your colleagues. Well, one we're gonna get back here soon. He just texts. He doesn't do anything on air because he's busy being a good dad. But your other partner in crime, Brunsey, he usually comes in, lights a match, lets it burn for a little bit, and then he leaves. So
Bruns does? He's like the most mild-mannered guy I know.
That's how he gets you. He comes in,
so
he seems
closet cutthroat.
He seems mild-mannered, but then he just throws a Molotov cocktail in the radio show and walks away.
He's like a ninja.
Well,
you're all unalived, and you're like, what happened? I didn't hear a thing. I didn't see it coming.
It had something to do with Bo Jackson, didn't it, last week?
Oh yeah.
I mean, he's usually on a roll. Brunsey is
I think he's just projecting some anger because his baseball team is going to cease to exist in about 3 months, but that's fine.
No, contractually they get to play for another year.
That's what they tell us. That's what they tell us. BC, speaking of people's favorite teams, we were having a conversation about Kirk Cousins yesterday.
Okay.
How do you feel about Kirk Cousins?
Oh yeah, I didn't know about BC.
I'm a big Cousins guy. I've been a Cousins guy for like 2 or 3 years when he was taking crap because of the Monday night stats and everything about primetime performances. Because I always thought he was like top 10 or 12 in the league, and I was okay with that. Mm-hmm. And I actually thought before the injury, if people were really paying attention, he was like top 6 or so in the league, like at that moment, like in those few weeks before the injury. And so it was a shame that happened because he was going to have the best season of his career. Now, can he pick up where he left off? I'm not sure. I get the argument in the team like the Vikings situations, like, well, are you fine with just always hanging around, like kind of being in the playoffs, but you can never get to the top? And I understand where that annoys people. I honestly do like following a franchise that's pretty good most of the fall and gives me something to enjoy on most Sundays. And even if there is pain at the end, and the Vikings tend to give that to me. And I think Kirk Cousins could get him higher if they surrounded him with a few better parts on defense, actually. But that's my thought.
BC, when you're taking so I'm going to ping pong with you just because I know you're talented. I want to start with football.
Yeah.
And this weekend being at basketball and kind of that presence. You and I have talked before about how you don't think things happen by chance, and Coach Rule is pretty calculated. But I want to get into how cool it is to see the sports cross promote and overlap. If a rising tide truly lifts all boats, where do you see kind of the evolution of this athletic department and its overseer with its coaches as they try to dial in on this momentum that these sports are seemingly collecting?
Yeah, I think you're hitting on an important subject. I think the coaches over there, I sense, are more tied in together than they've been in a very long time. And I do think Rule has a big part to do with it. I think the way that he embraces all the other sports, embraces all the other coaches, makes a big point about when he's like doing a press conference and something's happening with this particular sport or that one, he'll always bring it up first. And then, they put their money where their mouth is. They show up, like the players and him, and they're just there all the time and they're supportive. And so like a thing like the dunk contest over the weekend, like if you just popped in the middle of like a March Madness run and didn't have a presence prior to that, I could actually see where that could be off-putting in a way, but it's not that way because they're so well connected and everybody knows how much they've been supporting them along the way that it just feels natural. And it was just kind of like playing off each other and worked really well, I thought. And it got people to understand why there's hype about Jeremiah Charles.
So it's interesting. Trev was up he was in Omaha the other day, and we had to take care of a couple of things. And we kind of got on this sidebar conversation, BC. I thought it was interesting. He said, he was talking to our athletic director, and they were exchanging big people ideas. And some of the words I didn't understand because there's a lot of syllables. But he said, people talk about what I do daily and kind of my role with these coaches. And he gave an analogy. I'm curious to get your thoughts. He said, I'd like to just build a moat. He said, once you hire good people and you feel like you have smart people in place, regardless of sport, I want to spend a lot of my time building a moat around my employees and my coaching staff so they are free to do their job. So the state of Nebraska can see that we have some really good people in place. I'm building that moat so those guys can do their job. Like, I didn't sleep all night. I'm like, I love the analogy because I need pictures because I'm not very smart. But can you see that happening behind the scenes that's freed these coaches to just be able to go out and work, knowing that your athletic department has a common vision?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I just think there's a trust factor in Trev, and I wouldn't say that if I didn't think it. I wouldn't just say it to say it. I just believe the coaches see someone who has their best interests at heart, is going to surround them with as many resources as possible to succeed, and is going to get he can't lead them to the finish line, but here's the path, and he's going to give them the best possible path to do it from his job as an athletic director. And there's a faith there that I think is built up. I think you can see it between Trev and Matt Rule, the way they talk about each other and, express ideas about how each other does their job. And then I do think the piece of the coaches actually having that link together, even though they're in different sports and face different challenges within those sports, there is a commonality of the stress and the hurdles of that job that are very similar, no matter if it's bowling or football or whatever, that you can find a common ground on, and it helps to have an ear to listen to or to bend an idea by. And I think nobody on that staff right now, it seems like, is afraid to go to the other and have those conversations from all the stuff we've been hearing. So I do think they're in a pretty healthy spot with just like how their coaches correspond and kind of the connection to the athletic director and all those things. So that's a positive, because how long, there's many years where we talked about, especially with Husker football, can they get the coach and the AD and the university brass on the same page? It feels like it hasn't been that way in a long time. And there was hope that it was kind of going to be that way with Frost and Moose and everything, and it fell off. And now it does feel real that's something that's working. And so you hope the other parts around it work.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. BC, you kind of got my wheels turning a little bit between you and DB with talking about Trev there. And am I reading too much into it in what Trev tries to do for his coaches, to look at it and say, okay, when Trev came around, that's when Fred Hoiberg and Nebraska basketball started getting better as well?
And let's not act like he didn't have tough conversation. That was a very critical moment, right,
because
BC?
We focus a lot on Coach Rule and football and that part of it, obviously, but it seems like there's a pretty, at least coincidental relationship between Nebraska basketball turning around and Trev Albert showing up as well.
Yeah, I think there's something to that. Now, I understand, Fred is a sharp enough guy to see that it just wasn't working the direction they were taking and is going to switch past. But I mean, it helps to have a sounding board and someone with good ideas like Trev giving his input on that too. And when you listen to him talk now, they kind of parrot each other when they speak of like having this type of team that like just appeals to the state, and like has a certain work ethic and, a certain hustle mentality that shows up on the floor that just people will get behind, even if you come up short on certain days. Like if you have that type of team where people feel like, man, they're going all after it and they work together well, I will support them. And there was 3 or 4 years ago, 2 or 3 years ago with basketball where that just wasn't the case. It wasn't just the record. It was just tough basketball to watch. It was just, they had some good individuals, but the pieces of the puzzle didn't fit together well. And give Fred a lot of credit. He made some tough staff decisions, shifted a big assistant coaching piece around. I think, his assistants, now you talk about chemistry. I think they've found that, like on that whole bench with like what everybody's role is, and like Coach Lenzer, Adam Howard, Ernie Ziegler, all those guys have their part and I think know it well. And that's why you're seeing the team do as well too. Like, it starts from the top down and you're seeing a real formula of like how to work together and how to play off each other's best traits, I think, both within the coaching staff and on the roster.
Yeah, I'm not going to profess like that we're going to grab dinner and hanging out and stuff, but I think my discernment is okay when it comes to like gauging the character. It's interesting how I'm kind of seeing this shift with the department and kind of their philosophy. Like being a good person, I get it. It's relative to the user of the term, right? But like quality, and like you talk about Coach like Nate and Coach Hoiberg and Coach Howard or Coach Rule, Dvorak, like Coach White. You just think good people. Right. How important do you think it is at this juncture, at this level in Power 5 sports, Power 6 if you're basketball, that modeled behavior is still a thing, BC?
Oh, I think it's always huge. Especially.
We sure do undersell it, though, don't we? Just win or,
Yeah, maybe. But I mean, in this day and age where it's never been easier, and everyone around kids is going a different direction or saying, okay, I was here a year or two, it's not quite working out, I'm going to go over here. When you have a belief in the coach, he's going to give it to me straight. And I trust him because I believe in like his values, and he's got an honesty and straightforwardness to him that, that I can appreciate. I think that really helps in these turbulent times where there's so much movement with guys, when you have to have those deep conversations because they know that the coach has their best interest at heart, and that just carries such a long way. So I think it's huge in this era. I don't think that'll ever leave, honestly. And if we do undersell it, that's a bad idea because I think Nebraska puts out those football videos that people like. The shows, the little movies. And I think the thing that they really like to come across there, because they believe in it and they don't see it as a sales job, but just the truth is that there's a family over there and you can be a part of this family. And this is what family looks like inside our walls. And here's a little taste of that. And you can't put that on camera or probably represent, or you could, I guess, but it would be, people would quickly find out you're just selling them a bill of goods once they get here a few months, if you aren't really walking the walk as far as being a good person as a coach and just like being honest and all that stuff. So I think it's a huge deal.
We're talking with Brian Christopherson from Husker 24/7. I sometimes I bristle up a little bit when people use the term family in some of these situations, because I think there's 2 times people use that use that term. It's when they're trying to justify toxic behavior, but being like, hey, but we're a family. We can't, we got to stick together. Or sometimes it's a positive and they're doing it in hey, we have to have each other's back. We have to be there for each other. We have to sacrifice for each other. Right. And how have we been able to see that it was the latter, not the former, within the Nebraska football program?
Well, you got to prove it every day, but I think some of that is, if you want like evidence points, like even some of the guys who returned are an example of like believing in what they saw the first year. Like there was plenty of guys who could have went elsewhere. And we would have been talking about Nebraska's roster completely different if like Bryce Benhart or Ty Robinson or a Gifford or whomever decides, I saw this act up close for a year and it does not appeal to me. It's one thing in front of the cameras, it's another behind closed doors, all that sort of stuff. Obviously, they liked what they saw, thought they were getting better as players and maybe people through that first year. And so I think just some of the guys who came back is one example. And I try to have my antennae up, when I'm over there listening to interviews, and I realize people aren't going to say the worst stuff about anybody in front of the cameras and all that. But you can sometimes tell when there's a genuine like feeling, I think, of like, this is really tracking in a positive direction if we keep with it. And sometimes when something is being said just to be said. And there were past years when I think there was probably stuff where you could tell it was just being said with the cameras on because that's what had to be said. And I understand that by a player or something. I felt differently last year in a lot of those interviews. I really did. Just there was a belief factor of like, okay, it was hard at first. I didn't know exactly maybe why we were doing this or that, but I'm seeing the benefits of it now. And you could kind of pick up on that, just being a real thing. So we'll see though. I mean, you got to keep it going, and we're only 1 year into it, and everybody likes to talk good about what can be, so they still got to go do it. But I do think he's been very successful, Coach Rule and his staff, at building cultures in a positive way, and they've dealt in very difficult frameworks too. When they were at Temple, in the Philadelphia area, there was a lot of kids with really tough backgrounds and stuff they had to deal with. And sometimes they'd have to send somebody home and he'd be off the team for a while. And there were guys who came back and, they ended up getting to the league and stuff, and they worked it out. And so there was tough love along the way. But I think it goes back to Damon's question of, if you have that trust with players and build it up over time, even if there's a tough week or month or whatever, there's a realization, this guy really wants the best for me, and I'm going to see it through and just see what happens with it.
Yeah, it's crazy. I was just going to ask you something else, but I want to stay with that for a second. If I could back to back this, the prime example of a perfect example of what you just said, BC, is a guy like Tommy Hill, right? Obviously I'll go watch practice and I'll see interactions, and everybody saw the viral deal of the early suspension of Tommy Hill. And then Coach Rule takes the picture and he's like, hey, who's the new guy? You remember that, like when he was stretching at practice, and all of a sudden, Tommy Hill starts to flourish, right? He's kind of buying in, and I'm thinking to myself, Coach Rule said something, and I'll never forget this. He said, I try to tell these guys I want to operate in such a way that they trust me. So when we talk about my credentials, there's proof of concept. I've been here. I've done that. I've done rebuilds. I've been at the professional level. He said, and so sometimes I'll say to these guys, DB, why fight with me? I'm for you. Why not just do what we ask? Because I have your best interests at heart. Like, what are we doing here? Like, why would you want to argue with me? And it's so disarming and so powerful. I'm like, could I have even handled that at 18, 19, 20? Like, you mean you're for me, so just do what you tell me, because it's going to turn out well, right? Like, that's very, very important to him. And it worked with a guy like Tommy Hill.
Yeah, I mean, it sure did. I remember, I think I've talked about it with you guys, when the first practice or whatever of last spring when Rule announced like a few guys that weren't there, and Tommy was one of them. We were so used to it being a certain way with like how coaches handle stuff. It's sort of like, oh, he's gone then, I guess, like you kind of jump to that conclusion because around here it's been like, okay, he's not here today. He's probably not going to be here tomorrow.
I remember that guys would just like disappear.
Yeah.
Nobody would say
You're
anything.
like, oh, they're gone, I guess. Guess they don't play football here anymore.
Yeah, I don't think we've seen a lot, but seriously, we haven't seen a lot of those like stories of guys who like, okay, he wasn't at practice this day, and then like 2 months later, he's like rising up the depth chart. That just hasn't been something. It sort of felt like when you got to that point, that was the end of the story. If a coach said, "Yeah, he's not around right now, we'll see what happens," that usually marked the end of that chapter. And so you had to learn the last year. It doesn't mark the end. Like it doesn't mark the story on. I don't know what's going to happen with like Micah Mazuka, and I hate to like single his name out, but everybody heard him get brought up in the press conference the other day that he's got work to do. It's out there.
Mm-hmm. It's about more than just football, right? Or something like that. He said,
and I have no idea what's going to happen with that one, good or bad or in the middle, But the bottom line is, when I heard it, now I'm taking that information and I'm like, okay, well, let's see how it plays out. There's a challenge that's put out in front of him, but we've seen challenges with other guys. We saw it with Tommy Hill. We saw it. Anthony Grant didn't end up playing here very much last season, but he was a guy who was challenged in different ways, and he was still around and all those things, and Josh Fleeks and all that stuff. So just because a guy pops up in a tough love way now doesn't mean it's the end of their story. And I think if you go back to his track record, what you were saying there, Damon, and you look at guys he had at Temple and maybe a few at Baylor, but especially Temple, there were players he can point to and say, I had a situation with this guy and it was rough. Like he had a tough deal and tough family background or whatever. And he had to go for a bit, and then he came back and had success. And I know he had multiple cases like that where there were success stories. And so guys on this team, I think, know that he has that in his background. And there is a thought like you say, if you think a guy's for you, you might not like what the person says for a day. You might stew about it for a week, right? But like if your family, sometimes I'll get something. I've had something said to me, and you don't like it for a week or so, and then you're like, yeah, they're freaking right, So like, because that they want what's best for you. So that's huge.
BC, that's really good stuff today. We appreciate it.
Probably gonna bottle this one.
Yeah, I have a feeling we're gonna come back to some of those things in the next segment. But really appreciate your time, and we'll catch up with you again next week.
Appreciate it, BC.
Thanks, guys.
Man, there's a lot of stuff in there that I'm gonna want to get to in the next segment, because one thing that BC said that I think that we need to claw at a little bit more is there has to. I think it's not even just, hey, yeah, I think about it for a week and then I'm like, yeah, you're probably right. You have to trust someone so much that even if you don't think they're right, you still believe they have your best interest in mind.
That's like the ultimate.
Yes, that's where it goes from like, hey, good level of trust to we're in a special place.
Hey, I know you thought 218 was a good weight. I need you back down to 208, 209. I said, well, you told me to get bigger.
Yeah.
No, I don't like you there. Let's get back. And you're like,
okay. Even when you think they're wrong, like, do you still trust them?
Okay.
That's where it gets interesting. We've got more Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're halfway through the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. And as always, we're live from the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill. And speaking of the Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, you need to get ready for a game-changing experience at Omaha's premier sports bar, because they're now hiring at the La Vista and Gretna locations. That's both locations, if you weren't familiar. If you haven't heard, it's more than just a sports bar. From the elevated pub fare and handcrafted pizzas to diverse craft cocktails and classic cocktails as well. They've got live events, shows. There's something for everybody. Currently, they're hiring for all positions at both locations, so join the team today and be a part of the excitement. The way you can do that, visit in person all this week between 10 a.m. and 4 p.m. at the Gretna location for on-the-spot interviews and hiring, or you can visit hurrdatsportsbar.com/careers to apply. Make every game day unforgettable at Hurrdat Sports Bar and Grill, where sports, food, fun, and live entertainment come together. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook Hotline is our guy Andy Kendi from KETV. AK, what's going on?
Morning, boys. Happy championship week.
AK for Channel 7. How we doing, buddy?
I'm doing all right. Just kind of gearing up. We got girls tipping off today, boys tipping off next week. We got NCAA's action just around the corner. It's it's that time, right? I just looked at the calendar. I'm like, oh, it's almost time to flip it.
Yeah.
Almost time to flip it to March.
How much we've made it through with this senior class, AK, of you and I texting from across an empty arena during COVID for state finals.
Right.
Isn't that
true?
something?
Isn't that true? That is just crazy how much how this group has endured, right? I mean, it's been a we were actually talking about this in a bigger picture yesterday at Creighton because of the Stephen Ashworth Ryan Kalkbrenner thing. Like, it's COVID is still has tentacles still out there, and it's affecting like who's coming back, who's really a senior, do seniors walk, are seniors doing it, and that's at the college level, and these high school kids have endured as well. So, I mean, this is just the time to celebrate the sports and the championships, and this, we were talking last night that this is the time, these next couple weeks, these games they will remember for the rest of their lives at the high school level, at the college level, because these are the days. You may not forget a game mid-year against take your pick, Omaha Bryant, but you're not gonna forget a state game when you're going toe to toe with the crowd going nuts at Pinnacle Bank Arena. That's what makes this time so great.
Andy, I want to go back to Creighton for a second, but I want to go on the women's side. They had their senior night last night. I mean, I don't even think it's arguable the best class of seniors in Creighton women's history. They've had an incredible run, and last night we kind of got to celebrate them a little bit as they had the emphatic victory, putting up, I think the seniors had 80 of the 99 points in that game. Just, I guess, as you've seen this class develop, how much have they sort of changed the landscape of Creighton women's basketball?
Well, it's definitely up the standard, right? And to see the run that they made 2 years ago was nothing short of incredible. And to see them back it up and go to the tournament last year. Now, they didn't make the run last year, but I think that just set the standard 2 years ago about what's expected. And it all goes back to this group. The Ronsiks, the Mollys, the Lauren Jensens of the world. Even watching somebody develop like Mallory Brake this year, it's been a joy to watch. And Jim Flannery has a great group, and it's a credit to him and his staff, because he's it's one thing to have the kids who are talented, and it's another thing to make them win, and to lead them to victory. And he's been able to do that. Now it's going to be interesting to see what happens and who stays and who goes and who moves on and how this evolves. But before we get into all that, it's going to be fun to see where they land come Selection Sunday.
Yeah, it's just interesting in a state that has a lot of I think appreciated coaching performances. You got Raritan out at Hastings, and they're really good. And you could go to individual sports with the major universities. You could talk about Omaha baseball or Omaha volleyball, but Flannery at Creighton is, I don't know if we take it for granted or because he's such a good guy and good natured, but quietly he is a heck of a coach.
No doubt. And he's not a self-promoter either.
He's so unassuming.
Yeah.
It like draws you in. It like works the opposite of what I think its intention is.
Well, I think that's a draw too for some of the kids who are looking for a coach to play for, and his personality. He grinds. He's a worker, and he gets the best out of his kids in his own way. Not everybody has to rant and rave and scream and be demonstrative and say that he's number one or she's number one or whatever. Everybody has their own way of doing things, and what Flan has done over the years just goes to work. He gets his kids. He works hard. He develops them.
He's visible. He's extremely visible. We undersell that. To see Coach Hoiberg and Linzer and Rule and these guys and Nebraska, like just being visible, like Flan, he would just sit in the stands. I remember we'd be at Miller North a couple years ago, and he'd just sit there and mind his own business with a couple of staff. And it's like when people see you like for whatever the reason, it just has power.
Yep, no question. And he's out there. He's out there and visible. And the cool thing is, he's visible, and he could be standing next to you. You wouldn't know it, and then he'd hit you on the chest. Goes, "Hey man, what's going on?" That guy,
Very unassuming.
He's so awesome. And I'm glad you brought it up because I don't think Slang gets the credit he deserves.
Yeah, I don't know what it is. Like maybe it is because he's so kind. Maybe we just take it for granted. But he's pretty amazing.
We're talking,
and you root for the guys like that for sure.
We're talking with Andy Kendi of KETV. You mentioned that it's a super hectic time of year for you. You got girls state basketball this week, right?
Is there a Lincoln resurgence here, AK? I know Lincoln Southwest girls are going to be like, yeah, we've been here for a while. Lincoln High, I get it, but I think they've got 3 or 4 teams in. The boys, Southeast gets it. Are we shift maybe too strong of a word, but is there a movement? Is there a movement of front?
I think there's more of a balancing out of power, maybe perhaps. But let's just see how the weekend progresses both ways.
Okay.
And I know Lincoln High had that great run last week. But Southwest comes in. We're talking girls now. Southwest comes in as a 2, and they're going to knock off a Lincoln.
They got Southeast in the opener, right?
Yeah. So Southwest plays Southeast in the opener later on tonight, and so one of those teams will be eliminated. But I think when we're talking girls, I think Millard West is the team to beat in A, and obviously all eyes are on Scott against Elkhorn North in B, and that's going to get the lion's share of the attention. And the boys, the boys is an interesting thing because, while Lincoln has had a little push of boys teams, will they be there? Can somebody get into the crack the code of the Bellevue West Millard North final? Whether that's a Lincoln school or maybe this is Westside's year to break through to get to the final. Or here's the other thing, guys, and this kind of got underplayed we just didn't have time to get into it last night, but OPS getting a couple teams in after being shut out last year. So
yeah, how about North? How about North's run?
Mm-hmm.
I mean, off the line, a lot of murmuring, like North held their ground. And I think a lot of people picked Papio South last night, and North was having none of it. It'd have been easy for them to quit.
Especially being down double digits, down 14, 16 points or whatever, and then they put that run together. And I will give Omaha North credit. They have a alum base that really, really represents. You tweet something out about Omaha North, or you say something about it. People are very, very supportive. You've been to Omaha North, you graduate from Omaha North, you are a Viking for life. I will say that. And not to say other schools aren't like that, but man, some schools really shine in the alumni facet, and Omaha North really does have a great fan base like that.
That's our guy, Andy Kendi from KETV. AK, we appreciate the time as always. We will catch up with you again in a couple weeks.
I'm just going to stick around and watch you do the high school interviews and pass the trophy around. AK. Like that's as you know, that's my favorite part of the year to watch you as a polished professional.
Well, let's hope it continues. It's 2 weeks of fun, baby.
Ooh-wee. Good talk, AK.
Good talking to you.
That is Andy Kendi, KETV. Yeah, at the state tournament, fun couple weeks here coming up for the girls and then the boys as well. And yeah, it was gotta give a little love to Omaha North out there.
Yeah. I mean, you look up and they got 19 wins. It's like, wait, what?
I know. And everybody's like, they didn't play anybody. Yeah. All of a sudden, look, they're a state tournament.
Here we are.
We will wrap up hour number 2 coming up next year on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We're wrapping up hour number 2 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We are live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as well. Want to tell you about our friends over at the Team Jack Foundation. They just had their gala this past weekend. They had the silent auction, a bunch of stuff that you could have bid on and won in that auction as well. If you missed out on that, though, and you still want to be a part of what Team Jack Foundation is doing, just go over to teamjackfoundation.org. You can find out all about their events coming up, or if you're just like, hey, I just want to be involved, you can donate directly there from the website as well. Because what Team Jack Foundation is about is finding better treatments for kids fighting brain cancer and one day a cure. There's got to be a better way, and Team Jack Foundation is out there to try and find it. If you want to get involved, teamjackfoundation.org. And, I know it's early, but make sure you get to the gala next year, all right?
Right.
12's my favorite number, so, just get to the 12th annual gala. They just had their 11th annual. We'll be good to go.
Is it really?
Yeah, it's my birthday. I'm a 12th, so 12 is my number.
Oh, okay.
So,
Gosh, my birthday is not my number.
Yeah?
Maybe the month, like 3, but not the date.
What's the actual day?
Not important.
Not done.
I like 15. I like 21.
Big
key
phrase guy?
Yes.
Yeah.
I like 3, 15, and 21.
Where's the 3 come from? Just because?
March.
Oh, okay.
I don't like 15 because of T-phrase,
Doesn't hurt.
But it doesn't hurt.
So where'd the 21 come from?
Roger Craig.
Oh, okay. Okay.
And I wanted to wear 3 in
Yeah.
college because I wore 3 in high school,
Yeah.
but could not finagle 3 away from Toby Wright.
Ah.
So I went 2 + 1 = 3.
Fair.
And it was Roger Craig.
Yeah, I like it. I like it.
Yeah, it's funny. Like I know I'm not a big nostalgia or it's just not my deal. But but there is some impact of sitting next to that guy taking a black and white photo on the bench in 1981.
Yeah.
Holding his helmet with a like I'm even a Davin. So Roger Craig is so impactful on me. I like a boxer, Michael Nunn, because Michael Nunn is also from the Quad Cities, in Davenport, and I just was like, okay, what else is in Davenport? Like,
what's going on here?
I'm out on Tevin Campbell. He's Waterloo, but yeah. So I get it, but the fandom thing and like what I gravitate towards, but that's a 12 thing for you.
Yeah,
12.
That's my jam.
If I was gonna play like, if I'm gonna go to, well, Verzal will never let me play, but like let's say I was gonna go to Pisons, and he won't because I'm there in off-brand hours.
Yeah.
So the Keno screen is never on. 12 would be one of my numbers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Reverse of 21 or
no, like I don't know why. It'd be 7, 15, 12, 21.
So Crouch,
I don't even use 3.
So Crouch, T-phrase, Ravi, and Roger Craig. Is that?
Yeah. I just need a little R&R, man. There's people arguing with me about Hepburn and Salas. Revisionist history is hilarious. But speaking of...
No, my favorite part is just that. My favorite part is literally that Lance made the argument against Bo Jackson, my exact argument. He just used the name Justin Patton.
Yeah.
The revisionist history of what we saw with our eyes and what we thought it should be is impacting what we think he was in high school. Like, listen, everybody knows that. Everybody knows.
That was funny.
That was funny.
It's good to see. I like to see people like engage with their family though. That's cool. I didn't mind that.
I just appreciate the irony there that he could make that argument for Justin Patton.
So
because listen, nobody's arguing that Justin Patton wasn't better in college than he was in high school. The argument is, was he good in high school? And the answer is yes.
That's not true.
Now, whatever feels weird arguing with Lance. He's not even on the line here.
Yes, indeed.
But it's weird to kind of have this, it's weird to put this lens on it because of, anyway. That's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was what we were talking with BC, right? Because he brought up this thing about trust. And he used the example of, trusting someone is being able to say something they don't like, and then they realize later that you're right and they can deal with that, right? And then we talked about at the very end of that and then off air quite a bit, that next level, and I think where you actually get into something special, is when the person you trust can be wrong and it doesn't violate the trust, right? You trust them enough to allow them to be wrong.
So wrong, or maybe it's something that you don't believe.
Well, both. I mean, it could be both, right? Because listen, okay, so use an example of yourself, right? With the weight. That's what you were talking about.
Oh, yeah.
So you were like, hey, they wanted you to bulk up to get closer to 220, right?
Hey, you're getting a little too dinged. Let's carry some weight.
And then you come in, you put the weight on like you're asked to, and they were like, yeah, we don't like it there.
Yeah.
So they were wrong. They thought they were going to like you better at 220, 218, whatever it was. And they're like, nah, we were wrong.
260.
Let's get back to under 210, right? They were wrong. They thought you were going to be better at heavier weight. They were wrong. Did that violate your trust in what they were doing?
No. Like, I felt like Brian Bailey and Coach Solich could tell me anything. There were so many things I didn't personally adhere to. Like, so you guys mean to tell me I can get on this great big rubber ball? I can put it between my knees, and I'm going to do these things with my core, and it's going to take the place of me doing back squats for 3 weeks. It sounds pretty stupid, but I trust you. Or I can stand on this ball and I can put a bar behind my back and I can use a cleaning motion, and this is going to help me. All this was novel back then, right? Because it's things people do in their sleep now. Core, right? Not
core movement patterns. Yeah,
putting your body in position. So like you had to believe that, or
because to be fair, Nebraska invented that back in the day. Like that's
where that's Team Brian Bailey and those guys, right? But or something even a little more practical. Hey, don't run out of bounds. The more you get hit, the more your body will become accustomed to being hit. Sounds pretty dumb,
but
it's 100% true.
Or let's say,
right. So
is it kind of like a boxer?
Sort of. Like you got to take some body shots, and you have to know how to take a punch.
Yeah,
but you do go through in-season rigor where you become callous. It's like doing something during the course of a day that you. So when I was on a hiatus, right, getting up and doing things that I didn't want to do because I was out of a routine, like calloused my mind. Right. So I knew, I'm like, well, at some point I'm going to have to start getting up early again. So I would do things that I didn't want to do to get better,
to condition yourself.
Right. There's a lot of those things that just come naturally to me now because where my mind is. Right. It's like that with the weather. I don't really care what the temp is. I probably dress the same.
Yeah.
But my mind, it's because of rigor. It's just, like what I've been through. So like that's a real thing.
I have not calloused my mind against the weather.
But you understand what I'm saying?
I do. Yeah.
Like understanding grind is a thing.
So there's a modern example that you gave me of trusting the coaching staff even when you think they're wrong.
Yeah.
With Wright moving to linebacker.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Buddha. Yeah. Great. Good. Yeah. Nice.
Right.
Yes.
Not something he wanted to do.
So no.
Not something he thought was a good idea.
And the style of play. Like he would tell me these stories of like Coach White. Hey, I know it's loud, and loud is a term that Coach White uses for a lot of contact.
Busy.
Right.
Yeah.
I say dark, it's kind of dark and loud, like a lot of contact.
A lot of noise, a lot going on.
Right. And Buddha would say, you tell if you just play it this way, like it'll pan out. And Buddha would be like, my frame though, or this or that, and like didn't really buy in. And Coach White was like, just do it. And you saw as the season went along, as Javen started to lay it on the line and understand using his arms and leverage and striking guys, he really started to flourish. And that's one of those things where I bet if you asked him and he took some truth serum, and you're like, hey man, when we're talking to you about this evolution of playing this spot, man, what'd you think? Oh man, I thought they were crazy.
Right.
But it works.
And a lot of it is
Trey Alexander coming back for another year because you're going to get to do X, Y, and Z.
A little more ball handling, a little more lead guard stuff.
Man, come on, man. I see what we got coming back. No, Trey, you got to trust me.
You got to trust me here. Yeah.
Trust me.
A little more ball handling, a little more lead guard stuff, a little bit of, hey, I believe you can do this. So let me give you the opportunity to show people you can do that.
Jamarcus, how about coming off the bench? Hey, CJ, your minutes have been peeled way back. How about buying into this role? Hey, you think anybody wants to hear that?
How about Klay Thompson? Klay Thompson just got benched a couple weeks ago.
Yeah.
Right? This is a dude, 4-time champion, NBA record holder for 37 points and a quarter. I don't know if he still holds the NBA record.
One scored 50 points with 11 dribbles.
60, but yeah. 60 points, 11 dribbles in like 27 minutes. This is a dude that has every accomplishment you could possibly ask for. Doesn't like it, was vocal about not liking it. Who came off the bench and is balled out?
Yeah.
Klay Thompson.
So that's like I said the real magic, but yeah, that's
when you can trust someone when you disagree with them. That's a whole other level.
Yeah.
Real easy to trust people you agree with, right?
It's when the magic happens.
Coming up next, we got Jacob Padilla here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio. Now, basketball enthusiast and writer for Hurrdat Sports and Nebraska Preps, Jacob Padilla.
And he's like rolling in, and Shane goes, "Is that Jacob right there?" Oh, that's a difficult question.
Jacob Padilla.
Yeah, I don't know how much I slept.
Jacob Padilla.
Yeah, I mean, I don't even remember if I ever dreamed.
Jacob Padilla.
I guess it might be a little different, like considering how wild it's been.
Here is Jacob Padilla.
Kicking off hour number 3 here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities. We're also on KFOR in Lincoln, live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube as we get Jacob logged into the stream so you can watch him along on those video streams as well. Want to remind you about our friends over at the Warhorse Sportsbook. That is the place where you can get involved with their March bracket challenge. A perfect bracket gives you a chance to win $1 million, much like our friend over there at Austin Powers says, Dr. Evil, that $1 million perfect bracket. Make sure you are a Warhorse Rewards member to get your free entry, and each additional entry can be earned from March 1st to March 14th with a $50 sportsbook bet. Each additional wager of $50 or more gets you an additional entry. You can also get entries by having 50 points on slots and racing as well. There is over $10,000 in prizes for top brackets, even if you don't have a perfect one as well. Make sure you get those entries in and then get to the casino in Lincoln to activate those entries between March 18th and March 24th. Don't worry, we'll keep reminding you, but if you have any questions, make sure you go to warhorsecasino.com or download the Warhorse Casino app to make sure you get all the details and rules. That's Warhorse Sportsbook, no bets, no glory. Joining us now on the Warhorse Sportsbook hotline is Jacob Padilla of our very own Hurrdat Sports. JP, what's going on, man?
Hey, guys. Good morning.
Young Jacob, I love your artwork in the background. Did you do that?
The hand's a little small for me. That's from the niece.
He's so pragmatic. I'm almost afraid to ask him anything. Sometimes.
Well, I mean, listen, he doesn't know. Might have been when you were young. You just held on to it, Jacob.
Yeah,
we don't know.
Jeez. You guys have won one in a row. You still haven't really seen the big three is like a unicorn. You should be in a decent mood about your sons.
It's so busy right now. I'm not even going to be able to watch the Suns for a couple of weeks.
All right. So where would you like to start? You can go a multitude of areas, which is what's endeared yourself to us. I kind of want to start in the Big Ten. A little bit of a curveball, but the standings have had such a shakeup. You know, Wisconsin gets upset and Iowa's playing well. And I know you told me this 2 months ago. You're like, DB, when the 1st of March rolls around, Nebraska's going to have a shot at a 3 seed in the Big Ten. Like, I'm like, Jacob, you're such a genius. What are you making of the Big Ten right now?
I don't think it's very good outside of Purdue at the top and then Illinois.
Jacob DeMarinis here for his segment.
Hold on, Jacob. Before you go any further, I want to throw something at you, all right? You got the Big Ten's top 2, Purdue and Illinois. You got the Big 12's top 2, call it Houston and Kansas.
Uh-huh.
You got the Big East top 2, we'll call it UConn and Creighton.
If he gives Creighton and not Marquette.
Or you can take UConn, Marquette if you'd prefer. Which of those top 2 in those 3 leagues are you taking in March?
To
win the most games in the bracket.
Yeah.
At this point, and Houston can make a run. I just with Kansas, the McCullough situation, not knowing, it doesn't sound like he's going to be back during the regular season. I don't know what that means for.
So is this not a normal knee bruise, or is this something that I'm not aware of?
Yeah, it's weird. Every update I see is not expecting back. It's like, what happened? It didn't seem like it was something super serious at the time, but yeah. So like they were a 4.5-man team before his injury, and now you take one of those guys out, and so it's hard to. I mean, it's
so who's the half, Murphy?
Yeah, I mean, he's had a half a really good season.
Yeah, okay.
So, like he's close to being. You can make him a full player now, so they're back to 4 after losing McCullough. So it's hard to bet against Bill Self. I just don't know with the state of their roster at this point and the way the other guys haven't come on. But Houston, with their defense, they can win a lot of games. I don't know. I'll go. We'll just go with the Big East. Why not? I think. See, the thing is, like, I think the top 2s are pretty good there. But just looking at the Big Ten, and you throw Creighton in the top 3, but then so you got 3 teams that you feel really good about, and then you're immediately into bubble territory.
Okay.
Same thing in the Big Ten, where you've got the 2 up top, and then basically everybody else is bubble or below. And
All right.
obviously Nebraska is playing themselves off the bubble now, but like Northwestern's not a team that you like, oh, that's an awesome team right there. That's a high seed. And then you got Nebraska right there. So that's kind of, there's a lot of like mediocrity, a lot of, I guess, opportunity if you want to look at it. And Nebraska is doing a good job of taking advantage of that in the Big Ten.
Let me just go rapid fire with the question that Ravi just asked. Okay, you ready?
Yeah.
So just yes, no, first blush. Can Purdue win a national championship?
I'll say yes. I won't hold their history against them.
Illinois.
No.
Creighton.
We'll go no. Just
UConn.
Yes.
Kansas.
No.
Houston.
Yes.
Okay, so that doesn't really shake things up. I just was curious.
Yeah.
I'm surprised you said no at Illinois. Is it an Underwood thing or their roster? Because that roster's really good.
Yeah, just some of the like decision making down the stretch, the lack of a point guard. I just worry about them in close games late. We saw what they tried to give the game away against Nebraska. I think that's the last time I've sat down and watched like a full game of Illinois.
They successfully gave it away against Penn State.
Yeah, that as well. So that's the worry there, just kind of that one hole on the roster, because the team is pretty good. They got athleticism, versatility. Shannon's was a All-American caliber player until obviously his legal situation interrupted that somewhat. So,
and then it's been All-American caliber since.
Yeah.
So
it's a good team for sure. I mean, more than those like three or whatever I said could win a national title. It's just, I think that tier is kind of, you feel more comfortable with that group. Like, wouldn't be like, I said no for Creighton just because I'm like, don't want to be the homer and say, oh, for sure. But like, if things fall right, a team like Creighton and others like them could make a run, because what we've seen this year is even at the top, all those teams are susceptible on the right night.
I will say, Jacob, no one in Champaign trusts Coleman Hawkins as far as they can throw him. Not a soul.
He's a fascinating player.
He really is. It's a bizarre, because I mean, if you just look at the numbers, you're like, oh man, pretty good player. You watch him certain games, you're like, oh man, he's really good. And then you see him other times, like the end of the game at Penn State, and you're like, what in the unholy hell is happening with this person?
I just don't know, like, if I'm any more uncertain about the Big Ten with Michigan State and Wisconsin kind of sputtering late than like I am any other conference. I felt like BYU's win. I've kind of been on this BYU hype train, even though I do think Nebraska has a better resume if I'm just comparing. But I think I use a team like BYU, and I'm like, you know what? I think they typify the Big 12. Like, if you blink or you're a little lax, you'll get beat, right? That I don't know if I'm mad at Kansas for that game. Like you said, I mean, when they're healthy, that starting five is really, really good. The bench has always been a question, and right now they're just not healthy.
Yeah, and again, we don't know when they're going to get healthy. And you're right, like the Big 12, I know not a fan of the way they kind of juiced the metrics and what that meant for the non-conference and the games that the Big 12 produced there. Like, I'd like to see them challenge themselves a little bit more instead of gaming the system, but the teams are good despite that. Like, that doesn't mean that they aren't good teams. It's just they didn't earn it to the same degree as some of the other conferences. That being said, like, again, like you mentioned Wisconsin and Michigan State, like that's part of the problem for the Big Ten. The teams that were expected to be at the top are quickly taking a nosedive. So the fact that kind of the middle has gotten stronger doesn't add to the overall conference strength, because it's now those middle have become the rest of the top. Again, we've got Nebraska. Like, Nebraska is a good team. It's really impressive what they've done and what they've become. But like they're the fourth seed in the Big Ten right now. Like I don't, and they just cleared the bubble with that last couple of wins. So that's kind of where you're at with the conference. Like the fact that Wisconsin has just fallen apart, the fact that Michigan State hasn't been close to expectations. Like you add those back up to the top of the league, and then Nebraska is a really strong 6 seed or whoever it was, and you've got Northwestern had Tiberi stayed healthy. You're feeling pretty good about that group with a player like Boo Buie. Now those are the 3rd and the 4th seed you're looking at, and suddenly the top doesn't feel as strong, and that hurts the overall conference. But again, Nebraska's done a great job of taking advantage of what's happened to some of those other teams.
Jacob, you've never been afraid to hurt my feelings. Am I being a baby if why? I didn't even get the question out. See, this is what I got to deal with your buddy here, JP.
Somebody's got to keep you in check, DB.
You always say that. Like, since I've known you, you've kept me in check. Don't let anybody else do it. So, JP, let me ask you this. I was telling this with my buddy Aaron yesterday or the day before. I said, I either want Nebraska to be a 10 or a 7. But to be a 7, he and I we're just dinking around with numbers, right? I felt like they had to be in the finals of the Big Ten tournament, or at least, or the semis,
I think.
Okay. So because I don't want you to just jump a spot to 9 or a couple of spots to 8. I do think Nebraska is underseeded as a 10. I don't love them as an 8 or a 9. I just don't know if they can win enough to be a 7. Do I need to toughen up, or like what are we thinking here?
So if they're not good enough to make it to a 7, does it really matter what their second round draw would be?
So that's not. So the short answer is no. But what if I make it about matchups though, about who you're going to see in the second round? Because I think that could matter.
But that's something you can't really predict, right? Because the matchups are entirely how the bracket falls, as opposed to the seeding. Where
I do know that I have a good feeling of who my ones are going to be, though, and I don't want to see them. Is that fair?
Yeah.
Okay. Because that's really what I'm saying.
Yeah. But
you just don't want to play any of the ones.
I don't want to play any of the ones.
Yeah, that's fair.
Yeah, you never want to run into the ones, especially early in the tournament. They're the best teams in the field. But
that's why your question to me needed a little. I had to explain it a little. Yeah. I don't. At the end of the day, I don't want to see a 1, but I'm not necessarily afraid to be a 7. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Ultimately, they're going to have to beat a good team once if they finally get that first tournament win. That's got to be the focus first. Get there, feel good about yourself, and go get that first win. And then you're playing with house money at that point. You've accomplished more than any team has in program history. So, like, if you end up running into a 1 seed, take your best shot. It's already been a great season. But again, if for them to be able to, I think, win a second game, they have to make a run here to show that they're playing really well to get another quality win under the belt. Because down the stretch here, they're just taking care of kind of the bottom half of the conference, right? So I think it kind of plays hand in hand there. Like if they make a run to the 7 seed, then you'll feel better about them potentially making going more than one and done or winning 1 game in the tournament, because they'll have beaten another good team down the stretch and they'll be playing really well, and thus maybe they play themselves out of that 8-9 spot into the 7 seed or whatever it is. So I think it all goes hand in hand there. Obviously, you'd prefer not to run into the 1s, but I don't think Nebraska is in a place where I wouldn't be looking at that too much. I'd be focusing on kind of Nebraska and how they're playing, and then kind of let the chips fall where they may. I've never been one that focuses on the bracketology and here in the 4th week of January, they're whatever this seed, and this might be the matchup, because there's just so much left to play. And like nailing the matchups is so difficult anyway. I've never really paid much attention to that. Just kind of focus on the teams that I'm following and what they're looking like.
Gotcha.
We're talking with Jacob Padilla of Hurrdat Sports. Jacob, we talked a lot about the Big Ten. I want to ask about Villanova on the Big East side of things, because I don't totally know what to make of them. They kind of remind me of the Big East's very own version of Michigan State. True or false?
Well, so they don't have a Hall of Fame coach. That certainly, I think, would be a difference there. Because
resume roster, though.
Yeah. because even with the Michigan State struggles, and we've seen some of this in recent years, they still have a run in them for whatever reason. Izzo seems to find a way at times. But yeah, I mean, I didn't love the Villanova roster as much as some. Then again, like Michigan State, just because they brought everybody back, people expected them to be a top 5 team, and I was a little hesitant on that as well. I think I thought they'd be better than they have been, but I wasn't all in on them making the leap just because they brought everybody back. With Villanova, I think just with so many pieces, and you've got guys transferring from different levels, all trying to fit in. Justin Moore, again, coming off an Achilles injury, you just can't take for granted that a guy is ever going to be what he was before.
What a travesty for a guy like that, man.
Yeah, and that's the thing. Like he hasn't been an All-American. He's been a good player, but he hasn't been what he had a potential to be before the injury. And then you're fitting in all these other pieces. And Eric Dixon's had a great season and is a really tough player, but you got some other guys have been up and down. And again, Kyle Neptune's still figuring this out as a head coach. So I think, I guess it is somewhat comparable. But I think Villanova struggles are kind of more understandable and something you could have seen coming to a certain degree than Michigan State, to the degree that they've struggled. But yeah, I think they're both comparable within their conferences for high expectations coming in and kind of falling short.
JP, let's jump over to high school, man. You had a great piece that you put up on Omaha North. Ravi and I were talking about that. I think there's 5. I'm doing this in my head. There's 5 Class A teams with 20-plus wins. I think 24, 2 with 21, and 2 with 20. Creighton and Westside have 20. Who has 21? North and Millard North, and Bellevue West has 24. Is that how you drew it up too? Just like you pegged Nebraska as a potential 3 or 4 in the Big Ten, that North would enter the state tournament in Lincoln with 21 wins?
It's really impressive what they've done. And talked to Coach Lichty after the game and mentioned that the players felt disrespected going into the season, and then hearing the talk about their schedule. And to be fair, like they didn't take on the other top teams, but they did take care of business, and they secured a couple big wins. And then the comeback that they pulled off last night, I think.
Yeah, that's the thing.
Yeah.
Right, that's some serious stones. That's resolve.
Well, and the wild thing, so they're down 18 in the second half. They rallied all the way back without making a single 3-pointer. They went 4 for 4 to start the game and jumped out to a 14-6 lead, then gave up a 36-10 run. Tapio South hit 7 threes in the second quarter, scored 24 points, took a 14-point lead at halftime, pushed it back up to 18 in the third quarter. North missed their last 11 threes after that 4 for 4 start.
Yeah.
Yet still, they held Tapio South to 2 points and no field goals in the fourth quarter. Forced 7 turnovers, 0 of 8 shooting. Just did a great job of really locking in on Bryson Ball and Reese Kircher and making other guys have to beat them. And guys weren't able to step up and make shots. And then down the stretch, just couple of really, somewhat forced, but also somewhat unforced turnovers by Tapio South kind of allowed North to win it at the end. So just great resiliency from the Vikings. And that, I think, more than the 21 wins, the way that they won that game should have them feeling confident heading into the postseason.
Okay, so kind of the lazy analysis. I heard this a ton last night and again this morning. Obviously, you're looking at halves of the bracket, and one half seems to be a little bit more of a gauntlet than the other. But if you watch basketball and you're looking at matchups, Bellevue West, I won't say it was a little bit of a struggle against Central last week or week before. Is there anything on that half of the bracket that would lead you to believe that there could be some upsets? Because with Westside, Millard North, Southeast, and Gretna on the other half, that seems like much more of a crapshoot.
Yeah, I still like the way that Bellevue West still like what they're capable of.
How do they not get bored? Right? No disrespect, like how do they not get bored?
and that's why, like, I don't necessarily the fact that they were in some close games should serve them well, and they were able to win those close games and made mistakes, but also made plays to win. I mean, that Southeast game, they really struggled at the free throw line down the stretch and let the Knights back into it, but then made the plays at the end to kind of end the comeback. So situations like that, where they've been in down the stretch here, where every game hasn't been a blowout, I think should serve them well if they get into that situation in the tournament here coming up. So I still feel pretty confident about Bellevue West coming out of that half of the bracket. You're right, though. With the way Westside's been playing, if seedings hold there, get another crack at Millard North, or obviously Gretna's going to be tough as well. So it's I think that'll be fun here once we get down to PBA.
So I think, and internally, I think full disclosure, they wanted the opportunity to, Westside has 4 losses: Southeast, 2 to Bellevue West, Millard North. They in theory would get a chance to avenge them all. I think is the motivation. Careful what you ask for, or you could see it happening.
I definitely could see it happening again. That Southeast loss was a long time ago.
It's a head scratch. It was arguably the worst game that they played.
And honestly, the Southeast prep game, that was brutal basketball. Both teams shot under 32% from the field. Prep lost because they missed 11 free throws. Only made 2
I read your PSA. That was pretty good. You want to read it for us?
Yeah. Yeah. So Prep lost largely because of their free throw struggles. Papio South missed some really important free throws in the second half down the stretch when they could have come back and tied the game. It's not the most glamorous skill, but you have to be able to do it in the clutch, and teams it's really cost teams so far. And I've seen that throughout the season, honestly, some rough free throw shooting in important moments. So kids, practice your free throws.
Let me hop over.
Kids, practice your free throws.
So
about 30 seconds here, JP.
Creech, your favorite in B?
Yeah. With the injury to Ben Ehlers, I think that kind of opens it up a little bit, but they still got the size coming off their bench, plus the rest of their starting lineup, to kind of make up for that loss a little bit. I think that makes it a little bit more interesting, but Crete, undefeated, has to be the favorite going in.
Toughest to predict, still C1. I feel like I say this every year.
Yeah, no, that it's honestly one of the most fun fields every single season, and basically most of the favorites that we've seen made it through district, so we'll get to see them all battle it out down in Lincoln.
That's Jacob Padilla, Hurrdat Sports, keeping DB in line like he needs to be. We will talk to you later, JP.
Thanks, JP.
Right, talk to you later, guys.
More Hurrdat Sports Radio coming up next.
We will be back. 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 You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
That's Damon Benning. I'm Ravi Lulla. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio here on AM 590 ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln, as well as live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. We are, we're all over the place this morning. We're covering a lot of ground, but
We're trying.
There's something I wanted to talk about that we it sort of started coming out last week, but Andy Reid had a comment about it yesterday. So I feel like I'm going to.
Yeah, he was at the combine.
I'm going to bring it back up.
Is Andy losing weight? His face he looks
a little thin. He's kind of got the John Goodman face thing going on. John Goodman lost all that weight and like his face started getting a little.
Yeah,
skinnier.
for whatever the reason. Speaking of John Goodman, it's coming up on my TikToks episodes. Some of these explosive scenes from Roseanne. I didn't know Dan used to fight on Roseanne.
I didn't either. I never really watched Roseanne.
I never watched Roseanne.
Yeah,
but
I didn't know it was like that.
They were in at least the snippets.
Yeah.
Are intense.
A little bit intense.
TikTok should pay for advertising because TikTok is one of the main reasons I'm trying to get into Peaky Blinders. It came on a recommendation, and then I was like, "Ooh,
I'm a Peaky Blinders guy."
Yeah,
I'll ride with Cillian Murphy. He's fantastic. But I wanted to talk about because Andy Reid was asked about Eric Bieniemy going to UCLA as the offensive coordinator, so we'll see him next year. roaming the sidelines or maybe up in the booth as Nebraska plays UCLA, as now Big Ten rival UCLA, which sounds fun to say. But Andy Reid obviously gave a ringing endorsement. He's always given ringing endorsements of Eric Bieniemy. But for a guy who seemed like he might be on the cusp of a head coaching job at the NFL a couple years ago, have we ever figured out what his deal is?
No.
Because I don't understand it.
I mean, we've
at all.
speculated, and I think it's you don't want to spark false narratives because you just don't know. But for whatever the reason, he just couldn't land a job.
Yeah, and now seems like he's backsliding in his career a little bit, which is a little strange. His name got mentioned a couple times in connection.
Now he does have ties to UCLA.
He does. He coached there back in the early 2000s, I think. And so it's not totally unusual. He got mentioned a couple times up for the Colorado head coaching job when it's been opened over the last couple of years. Obviously, he didn't get that. But this is a guy that I understood the hesitancy of being like, how much is the offense having to do with Bieniemy? How much is it having to do with Andy Reid? But it's turned into this whole other thing. Is he just not likable?
I don't.
Is that I mean, that's the only thing I can think of.
Or he doesn't interview well.
I guess that's kind of what I mean.
Well, there's a difference.
Because
right?
One's like maybe he's tough to work with. The other one is he doesn't come off well.
And like somebody could be super likable, but you're like, yeah, no.
Just doesn't come off like.
And somebody can be really good at their job, and you're like, I don't know if I could see myself being able to work with this person.
Sure.
Right.
Sure.
So I don't know. I think there's varying degrees in that. I mean, maybe they're having fixations of him recruiting Maurice Jones-Drew, because that was Bieniemy's big get.
Yeah.
When he was at UCLA the first time around, but I say that kind of tongue in cheek. Listen, just food for thought.
Mm-hmm.
What if maybe it's something as simple as he's had a lot of stress.
Mm-hmm.
He's been lobbied for this job and lobbied for that job, and he didn't get it for whatever the reason. And then he goes to the Commanders, and it was not a success after winning 2 Super Bowls in 5 years with Kansas City. Maybe he just wants a break.
Okay.
I don't know. I
could buy that though.
Right? He's 50. I was on my unofficial, so that was nice. He's got to be 54 years old. Okay. So let's just say he wants a break. Maybe 54. He does. Is he 54? Mm-hmm. Maybe he doesn't want the pressure or the scrutiny. Maybe Westwood fits him.
Okay.
Where it's like, you know what?
You can talk me into this.
I just want to do me. I'm familiar with Deshaun Foster. We have a previous relationship.
Mm-hmm.
I'm ready for something different. Maybe that's it. Because I know it's human nature. We always assume the worst, and they probably did this, and we like to wish. Maybe that's just a peace of mind.
Yeah, and I don't necessarily want to assume the worst. I just don't understand it. Because his career seemed to be on one trajectory, and then all of a sudden, it was on this totally different path.
Maybe his spirits are broken.
That's fair,
right? Like
I've been there.
Yeah, and I think I have to some degree.
Yeah.
Close, but not good enough. So it's like, maybe this isn't for me.
Yeah. I mean, full disclosure, I've been up for other radio jobs before and didn't get them. And there's a part of me that's like, do I want to keep trying to do this? Right?
Yeah.
Because you're like, hey, I felt like I deserved this. Felt like I earned this.
And keep in mind, you're just a pup.
Yeah.
Compared to a 54-year-old
guy. Yeah, I was
guy.
early 30s.
Right.
31, 32, 33, so that's I could see that if that's as a possibility for sure.
Maybe he's in a situation where he doesn't need the money. I mean, because you got to think he's probably going to be a mill and some change.
Yeah,
maybe.
with UCLA's financial situation, probably not much more than $1 million.
Right.
He's not going to be one of those 1.8, 1.9 guys.
So maybe it's a peace of mind kind of thing.
And you could, I think you could probably learn how to budget on $1 million a year. That's probably figure it out.
Even in California.
Even in California, you could probably figure it out.
Let's go to White Castle and Jack in the Box.
Balling on a budget.
It looks like he's had a little. I mean, you know what I'm saying? Like, maybe it's not sushi.
You're not saying he's not in his playing shape anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, I don't know. Maybe it's something as simple as I just don't want the drama.
That's fair. I could see that. That would make a lot of sense.
You know, because I mean, full disclosure, settling is probably too strong of a word, but I could easily see somebody choosing peace of mind and maybe enduring a little bit of criticism
over ambition. Yeah, I think that's an interesting little bit of food for thought there, because
not exactly what you're expecting when you asked me.
I didn't know. I had no idea what you were going to say, honestly. But
it's seldom topical with me.
That's
why it's usually something.
That's why I wanted to ask the question, though, because he's had a very strange path these last few years, right? And I was having this conversation with.
I think it could be something as simple as his confidence is shook.
Sure.
Maybe he just doesn't want to do the dog and pony show.
And you bringing up ambition is kind of funny, because I had this conversation with my brother not that long ago, right? And I don't think he would mind me saying this. Him and his business partner own a business, and for a while there, they were super ambitious. They were looking at expanding and trying to, I call it, the world domination phase of either business ownership or career aspirations, whatever, right? And and they kind of decided to pull back and restructure a little bit and kind of stick to what they were good at. And I told him, I was like, sometimes making a really nice living is enough. You don't have to conquer the world, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, sometimes ambition works against our own happiness. Sometimes it doesn't, right? Sometimes you have to be ambitious to get what you want, right? But sometimes being ambitious can work against our own well-being, right? It can create a stress level that the extra income or the extra business or the extra notoriety doesn't justify, right? And so maybe that's what we're talking about here with Eric Bieniemy. Maybe the ambition of, I want to be an NFL head coach and I want to go through this dog and pony show and I want to be in the rat race. Maybe he just likes calling plays. Maybe he just likes running an offense. He's like, for $1 million a year, I can be real comfortable and I can do the thing that I like. Is that enough? Because for some people, it's enough. And for some people, they're going to want more. But we've heard Coach Rule talk about this. A lot of times when you become a head coach, you don't get to coach that much football anymore.
Yeah.
Some guys want to just coach football, right?
And it's just,
and that's okay.
Like, everybody has all these speculations about Chip Kelly, right? Why would Chip Kelly go be an OC?
Maybe he just likes coaching football.
And maybe he doesn't want what came with his experience at UCLA, right? Because, I mean, if you look at read some of the exit stuff, it's like, man, all this happened under his watch, like the State of the Union, the finances,
the NIL,
alienation,
lack of.
Right? Like boosters. Like, maybe he just wants to lay in the cut, and that's okay.
It's okay if you just want to coach football.
Yeah, I don't think there has to be anything special to it, but I'm not for sure with Bieniemy, but he's definitely, his career trajectory,
not what I thought it was going to be 3 years ago.
Yeah. It makes me think of guys like Dave Aranda and Matt Campbell in opposite
directions.
Yes.
Maybe the head coaching job ain't all it's like cracked up to be.
And maybe I'm good where I'm at.
Coming up next, we'll wrap up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio.
We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. We will be back. You're listening to Hurrdat Sports Radio.
Wrapping up the show here on Hurrdat Sports Radio, AM 590, ESPN Omaha, ESPN Tri-Cities, KFOR in Lincoln. We're live on Twitter, Facebook, and YouTube. That's DB. I'm Ravi, Lulla. We're halfway through the week already, man. Here we go again.
It seems like it's happened fast. My man Joel on Twitter, because I think people gave Jacob a little pause.
For what?
Well, he was like, well, how can such and such school, but you can't see Illinois? It was rapid fire, but Illinois seems to be kind of the one that
people are stuck on a little bit.
Because who did we just talk to that said that they could see Illinois? Oh, was it Matt DeMarinis? Who
Maybe.
just said yesterday that they could see Illinois winning a national championship?
That must have been Matt. We were talking to Corsi a couple days ago.
Oh, it was Mike DeCourcy, I think.
Right?
Yeah.
Because he said that they have like a really wide variance in their
Right.
in their possible results.
The mayor, Joel, he says Illinois can in fact not. He's in agreement with Jacob. Win a national championship because Hawkins is too emotional. Isn't it amazing on a team that has a guy like Damask and Shannon Jr. Who's always comes up?
Hawkins.
Always.
And
the public,
because he's the
remember
wild
I told you
card.
Degenerate Aaron was like, dude, what is Hawkins do? Like,
he's the wild card. One of my best friends in the world lives in Champaign. He is super plugged in. He's one of the like three people that like Illinois football better than Illinois basketball, but he's very plugged into the whole.
He's no Alan Murrow. I used to work for a guy or with a guy. He's kind of like my brain conscience. He's
Yeah.
a Illinois grad, super smart. He worked over at Pacific Realty and then Notto Companies, but he's the biggest Illinois fan I know. And those people do exist.
Oh yeah, and they're kind of like seeing unicorns. Like, that's strange. You don't see them very often, but that doesn't mean he doesn't like Illinois basketball, because he's super plugged into Illinois basketball. He works a lot with the athletes over at the university as kind of a pastor chaplain type deal. But every single time Illinois comes up, it's about Coleman Hawkins, whether it's from a distance like us, whether it's from somebody super plugged in like him. Every single time it's Coleman Hawkins. And I will say this, though. To me, it doesn't eliminate them from contention, because I'm a Warriors fan. I've seen Draymond Green be a psychopath for the last decade, and they still got 4 championships out of it, right? You can deal with a certain amount of an emotionally unstable person. And Coleman Hawkins brings enough to the table on the court that you're willing to deal with it, right?
Yeah.
And you've got enough guys around him with Shannon, Damask, and the rest of their lineup. The thing that I worry about the most is I don't know how good of a coach Brad Underwood is.
No, I think so. That's where I would start. Maybe people aren't comfortable, but like we've seen some missteps.
I don't know how good he is
in the postseason in games that I think a lot of people think Illinois should have
gotten a little further, done a little better.
But and I'm not stuck on, well, you need a true point, because I've seen lots of good basketball teams.
They do it with like a combo guard.
Have a multi-concept deal, right?
Yeah.
It's like, shoot, heck, I've seen Juwan Gary initiate the offense.
You need a
right.
Lead,
so
you
it's
need
like
a lead guard. I don't know that you need a point guard.
So it's like, well, and it's situational.
Yeah.
Right. Sometimes when you want to get into a set, it's probably better that Baylor handles it than Ashworth.
Yeah, we talked about this.
Or Trey Alexander over Baylor, right? So it's like, just depends on what action you're trying to get into. But their makeup, they've got a bucket getter. They take decent care of the basketball. I believe they fit the criteria. I have to check my notes. I believe they fit the criteria.
The top 40
of the top 40 offense, top 25 defense for KenPom.
Well, let me look right here. They are nope, they're not on defense. They're 63rd on defense.
Is that right?
Yeah, I'm looking at KenPom.
All right, so we got Houston, Tennessee, Auburn, North Carolina, Kansas, Marquette, Arizona, Michigan State, surprisingly.
Michigan State's so weird.
UConn, Purdue, and Creighton.
Creighton, you say?
Isn't that weird?
Another team that Jacob said could not win a national title?
And nobody really, he didn't get a ton of pushback on that.
I think it's because from a mental standpoint,
the Illinois one, he got a little at least in my small sample size.
I think part of it is more people are more comfortable with the idea of Illinois winning a national title. We've seen them in national title game before in our lifetimes, or at least in most of our lifetimes. But we've seen them be like, we view Illinois as a different type of basketball school.
You know, the one that surprised me the most was Kansas, because I've seen Bill. We've all seen Bill Self win a national championship,
multiple national titles,
with playing 6 players.
Yeah, I disagree with him there. I don't think they will, but I don't think they can't.
Right, like
right.
He's won a national championship without a great bench.
I think, and he's not the only one. Right, we've seen great coaches. Jay Wright did it with 6 guys. Right, I think 2016 was a 6-man team.
Yeah, I have no idea why you'd bring up that year. Maybe it was because it was the year they won it. But let's not get into the 2016 national championship game.
Oh, my bad.
It's not necessary.
It's my bad. I didn't mean to.
Secondary, not necessary.
That's my bad.
You could have just said Jay Wright played with 6.
Yeah. Well, I didn't want to confuse because of 20.
Oh, you thought we would mix up the year? Or?
Yeah, 2018 they played with more than 6. So, I didn't want to. I really genuinely forgot that that's who they beat in 2016 in the moment.
Yeah, you're like Jenkins, right? Like,
no, Marcus Page. That was a good shot though by Marcus Page.
Who doesn't make double pump 3-pointers?
No, that was pretty cool. To be fair, one of the best national championship games we ever had. I'm sure you didn't enjoy it as much, but like objectively.
Yeah, and that's one of those years where I didn't feel like, because I said as of late, college basketball, maybe the best team hasn't always won. That was one of those years.
You thought the best team didn't win that year? So let me go back to the Underwood thing for a second here, right?
Yeah.
Because
bias aside, I mean,
yeah, I'm sure that has nothing to do. You won it the next year. You're fine.
Oh,
yeah, you're fine.
Some Madonna, DB.
I mean,
it's like, don't be greedy.
Like 94 made up for 93, right? You're fine.
No. I don't think like that. I want them all. No, I'm just kidding. No, I'm just serious.
You're not kidding. I'll say, don't say you're kidding. You're not kidding. Okay, so I'm looking at these coaches that have won national titles in the last 10, 15, 20 years.
Well, which is it? That's a big.
Well, I'm
gonna go 20?
Yeah, let's go 20. All right, we're going back all the way back to. Let's go to 2000. Let's go to 2003.
Okay.
That's Jim Boeheim, Syracuse, right?
That's Mello, Jerry McNamara.
Don't forget about my guy Hakeem Wark.
Yeah. See, I don't think that was the best team in college basketball.
No, I'm not. I'm talking about coaches. I'm not talking about.
No, I know, but that just lends to my example of what's happened in college basketball.
Oh yeah, I don't think anybody's on the impression that March Madness lends itself to the best team always winning.
But they were on kind of a little run.
They did okay for a while.
Yeah. I was like, oh, okay, 64 hasn't mattered.
So, okay, let me just read these names off, okay? Jim Boeheim,
yes.
Jim Calhoun, Roy Williams. Great coaches, right?
Correct.
Okay. Billy Donovan, back-to-back. Really good coach, borderline great coach, whatever.
It's Florida, right? Doing their darn thing.
Bill Self, as we mentioned.
Great
Roy
coach.
Williams again.
Yeah.
Mike Krzyzewski.
Yeah.
Calhoun again.
Yeah.
So here's one I'm curious about. Calipari. How do you feel about Calipari?
I think he's a great coach.
Okay. We'll put him as an outlier.
Okay.
Okay. Rick Pitino, however you feel about him, really good coach.
He's good. He's a great coach.
Kevin Ollie, outlier.
Correct.
Krzyzewski, Jay Wright, Roy Williams, Jay Wright. How do you feel about Tony Bennett?
I think Tony Bennett's a really good coach.
I do too.
I don't have any problem.
I
would not put him in the outlier.
I think
his style may be antiquated. Great coach.
And it lends itself to some bad results sometimes.
Yeah, because sometimes he can't defy volume.
Yes, but really, really good coach. Okay,
Well,
not an outlier.
I'm with you.
Scott Drew.
I mean,
really good coach or an outlier?
He won at Washington State.
Yeah, that's not hard. That's
So how long did it take, Drew? 20 years? 16 years?
We're gonna look it up.
How long did it take, Drew? And maybe that's not really an indicator. I'm just thinking because I didn't know we were going to do this exercise. So you're
18 years.
Took him 18. Okay. Hey, how about that? I said 16 or 20.
Yeah, that was pretty good. Right in the middle. That was pretty good.
High five, DB.
I thought it was less than that. That's good.
Thank you.
Good coach, great coach. Outlier.
Not an outlier.
Closer to Tony Bennett than he is to.
I would say good coach.
Okay, so we'll put him. We'll give him a third as not an all timer.
Okay,
not an all timer. Fair.
Yeah.
Okay, the last couple here, Bill Self again.
Yeah.
And Dan Hurley. I think really good coach. Hate him, but really good coach. Think that
not an outlier.
Not an outlier.
Good coach.
So we're talking 3-4 outliers tops in the last 20 years.
And that's if we're being
like pretty aggressive on who an outlier is, right? I've only got.
So that's why you don't think Underwood. You're making the case
against Underwood.
I like that.
The only guy that's a for sure outlier.
You're stealing my style.
I think you rubbing off on me. I think the only guy that's a for sure outlier, that if you're being conservative on the outliers, is Ollie.
Yeah.
Because you can make an argument for Calipari because multiple Final Fours, multiple places. Like, you can make an argument for Calipari being an all-timer. You don't personally like him. I'm not going to push back on it.
I don't personally
think he's great.
Yeah, I just don't think he's great.
Not personally. Don't like him as good of a coach.
I think we're to the point now where in-game matters because a lot of teams have fellas.
Absolutely.
I think, which is also where I think Underwood has.
Yeah, can get the guys. Don't know how good of a coach he is.
Yeah.
Right? So we're talking between 1 and 4 outliers in the last 20 years.
Although Dillingham and Shepherd.
That is your argument.
Should they be better?
Yes, they absolutely should be better. I'm watching them last night.
Those are two of the top 10 pups in the country.
I'm watching them last night against Mississippi State, and I'm like, they should be better than this. This should not be happening to them.
Yeah.
That's your argument against Illinois. It's not Coleman Hawkins. It's Brad Underwood.
Okay.
A lot of teams have won with some guys that were a little maladjusted. Not a lot of teams have won with a coach that wasn't an all-timer.
I like that.
We've got more Hurrdat
like
Sports
that.
Radio coming up tomorrow. A little teaser. We got Greg McDermott on Friday.
Uh-oh.
Maybe you should tune in.
Uh-oh.
On Hurrdat Sports Radio.
See you. Have a good day. Love you.